All right, let's get it. Drive time Friday afternoon, 8 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. It is a beautiful, picturesque day outside here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. We're looking at about 78 degrees, clear and sunny. Temperatures will warm throughout the course of the weekend. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson behind the glass, producing the program today. And booking the program today, we got a good guest list, man. Excited for this. Happy Friday to you. Congratulations, you made it. It is weekend time. Take a big old deep breath and enjoy the fact that you made it through the week. Hope you have some fun weekend plans with this beautiful weather here in Salt Lake City, Utah, the surrounding areas. Maybe get out, do a little hiking, a little biking, walk the dog, swing a golf club. We've got some NBA Finals action to talk about. I'll tell you what, never been one to do radio with the whole, put my feet in the cement on a hot take and be upset if I'm wrong. I, like the rest of the free world, have picked the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the NBA championship. I picked them in 5, which means they've got to win 4 straight. But I'll say right off the top, I hate the Indiana Pacers, and I'll always hate the Indiana Pacers. Little PTSD, working on it, therapy, Reiki healing, ayahuasca, just kidding. Whatever I need to do to get over my childhood trauma of watching Reggie Miller torture my New York Knicks. Although that's not an entirely accurate narrative, while I will never cheer for this basketball team, I am so wildly impressed with them. Rick Carlisle is doing a masterful job. Tyrese Halliburton, it was interesting watching the game last night. We'll get to it on the program. The first 3.5 quarters, and I said this yesterday, I think it was during crosstalk with Sean, when he asked me, this whole debate about whether or not Tyrese Halliburton is a legitimate superstar. There are so many long stretches where he just looks like one of the dudes in their rotation. And then ultimately, he just has this ability to find a way to get it done when the moment calls for it. And if that's not the definition of a superstar player in pro basketball, I'm not sure what is. Oklahoma City had them in a stranglehold, and just remarkable resilience from this group of players that are very good and talented. Let's be clear. I mean, this narrative that they don't have talented players is incorrect. But my goodness, Indiana once again snatches victory from the jaws of defeat, and they go up 1-0 in the NBA Finals after beating OKC last night, 111-110. They did not have the lead until 0.3 seconds left in the game. Now, if you're not familiar with the biorhythms of NBA schedule makers, now we wait. And we wait, and we wait, and we wait. 2 days between games, no reason for that, in my opinion. Sunday will be game 2, back at Paycom Center in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. That crowd was awesome. The OKC crowd reminds me a little bit of the Salt Lake crowd when the Jazz are good. I know, kids, it's been a while. Hopefully it happens again before we all die. But that building, loud and proud and crazy. But credit the Indiana Pacers. Sunday's game will be a 6 o'clock Mountain Time tip on ABC, and then we go from there. The battle for Lord Stanley's Cup resumes tonight. If you missed game 1, holy smokes, it was awesome. And tonight we'll see if we can get the same type of feel, the same type of intensity and passion, and hopefully overtime, because overtime in the Stanley Cup playoffs rules. Panthers-Oilers tonight, 6 o'clock Mountain Time, drop of the puck at Rogers Place in Edmonton, Alberta. You can hear that game here on this radio station. We are your home of both the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals in the market, so keep that in mind. Oilers up 1-0. Rematch of last year's Stanley Cup, which was awesome in and of itself. So there we go. A lot to do on the program today with the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals top-of-mind awareness. A little off-season NBA news already. The proposed dramatic offseason that people have discussed has already begun. And apparently the New York Knicks are looking to speak with Jason Kidd, who currently is the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, who have the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. We'll talk about this. I'm not sure that I see how this goes down. If you're Dallas, you're asking for a lot. The Knicks do not have draft compensation because they essentially utilized all of it in the Mikal Bridges trade. Only a few weeks away from the NBA draft, where the Utah Jazz find themselves with the number 5 and the number 21 overall pick in the first round. A couple second-rounders to boot. We'll see what the Jazz end up doing prior to draft night, or if they stay at 5 and 21. And they look to just add a couple of young pieces and hopefully have better talent evaluation at their disposal. So far, the draft results over the past 3 off seasons have been mixed at best. So we'll do some Jazz off season on the show today. RSL is idle this weekend, which is probably a good thing because they don't seem to be very good at soccer right now. Their next game will be the 14th, June the 14th, as RSL will take on DC United. And then they only have one other game this month. Diego Luna has made his way to the U.S. men's national team with a little Gold Cup action for Diego. And RSL unable to add talent until the summer transfer window, which opens, I believe, mid-July-ish. How about Yankees-Red Sox tonight? We should do some more baseball as the summer kind of warms up. We have the French Open going on. Carlos Alcaraz is in the final. That dude is just different, of course. And we have a little French Open tennis as well. The world of professional golf has their eye on the RBC Canadian Open. And my guy Nick Taylor, proud Canadian, has made a little move here. He is 10 under. He's right behind Cameron Champ, who won a Corn Ferry event here in our market. We'll do a little golf on the show today, too. Off-season college football news, Utah BYU style, kind of idle right now. Most of the off-season college football storylines are surrounding the House v. NCAA settlement, the proposed expansion of the CFP, conferences fighting with each other. NFL off-season news, good riddance. Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler. Who gives a rip? So there you go. A lot to do on the show. Good guest list. We'll start things off today with Christopher Mad Dog Russo. Mike and the Mad Dog was the first sports talk radio program I consumed as a youngster growing up in the Northeast footprint, where it really was the first kind of two-man radio show format where that radio station took a risk to believe that people would actually listen to two people talk about sports for hours on end every day. And people did, and it was a massive success. Chris is now on First Take with Stephen A. Smith. I believe those are Wednesdays when you see Chris Russo. Daily Show on Sirius XM does Major League Baseball stuff. He's still doing it at a very high level. So we will bring in Chris Russo right off the top today. We'll talk some NBA playoffs. I know he has strong feelings on the NBA lottery, where the Jazz found themselves, I guess I'll say, falling to 5th, even though that was the most likely outcome with the way the lottery is set up these days. We'll bring in Mad Dog right off the top today. Howard Beck, one of our favorites, talks some NBA on the program. Zach Harper, more NBA Daily Assist style. My old radio partner, Gordon Monson, stops by, longtime sports columnist from the Salt Lake Tribune. I'm going to try to be really nice to Gordon today. His daughter got married, and they went over to Hawaii for the ceremony. And I'm sure Gordon did not appreciate this, but his wife, Lisa, who I love, they're an awesome family. They're great people, was sending out a bunch of videos, and Gordon was wearing a fedora throughout the course of the ceremony. I'm going to try not to only talk about Monson in a fedora today, but honestly, it's kind of the only thing I want to ask him about, because my guess is that was not his choice. That was probably handed to him. He has 5 daughters who are all very beautiful and very fashionable, and his wife looks like she's 20 years younger than he is, and she's gorgeous. So my guess is they were like, what do we do with Dad? Well, let's just hand him a fedora, and let's see if he's able to pull that off. So when I saw the video, I actually texted Porter. I'm like, dude, you got to get Gordon on the show so I can mock him for his fedora. Chris Russo, Howard Beck, Zach Harper, Gordon Monson, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, that guy, Porter Larson. Have you ever in your life worn a fedora? Unironically or not for a Halloween costume?
Yeah, no, not unironically. But I like to throw one on for a bit.
You don't strike me as a fedora guy.
Yeah, I'm also not one who could pull it off if it were a thing. So, no fedoras in this house.
All right, tell me this. So last night I'm watching the game, and a couple buddies like, all right, Shea hits the layup. I think they go up 7 with about 90 seconds left. And one of my buddies, he's like, all right, that's done. It's over. Not enough time.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, you didn't watch the Knicks series. You didn't watch the Cavs series or the Bucks series. Like, I will own my pick, and I still believe OKC finds a way to do this, but I am so wildly impressed with the Indiana Pacers, even though I cannot stand that team.
How can't you be?
It's pretty remarkable.
I mean, the way that they're winning games and the way that they're staying in games until you just give Tyrese Halliburton the ball on the last possession, it's fun to watch. It's probably unprecedented as far as the amount we're seeing it in the postseason. And he did it a bunch through the regular season too, where the Pacers just stayed close, and then Tyrese Halliburton hit a last-second shot. Now, it wasn't all Tyrese. He had a kind of run-of-the-mill game for him. Andrew Nembhard, good pick-and-roll player, fine defender, although a little undersized. But there are moments in big games where he turns into Allen Iverson at the end of a possession. And, man, it's a lot of fun to watch because they are going to turn this into a series that I don't think a lot of us expected coming in.
I said yesterday I'll take OKC in 5, but the basketball fan in me just wants good basketball in a long series. So if game one's any indicator, maybe we'll get that. All right, Chris Mad Dog Russo, our first guest on this beautiful Friday afternoon. But before we get to Mad Dog, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends at Prize Picks, it is time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash with millions of members. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Do you know ball? There's only one series left in the playoffs, and the championship is officially on the line. That means time is running out for you to put your final takes to the test on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. And some good news. It is Friday. You know what that means. Today is Flex Friday. Make sure you opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the protected play. You can choose squares from any game on the board. If your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds to fill up your promo limit as soon as the lineup settles. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700. They're going to hook you up with $50 when you play that first $5 lineup. You do not even have to win the $5 lineup to get the $50. It is on the house. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 and get $50 when you play that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game all season long. Also, our friends at Live Night Events present the 2025 Granary Live Concert Series, powered by Nightingale College and Murdoch Hyundai. Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer. Experience outdoor concerts in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City's Granary District. Find more details on ESPN700sports.com. Last night, Game 1, NBA Finals. Don't forget, Mad Dog Russo of First Take fame and Mike and the Mad Dog fame will be our first guest on this Friday. Game 1, NBA Finals, Oklahoma City. And it really, in a lot of ways, was kind of fitting the script that most people thought it would early on. We talked about the potential of certainly Indiana looking nervy and playing a little bit loose for a young roster that's never been to the NBA Finals. Now, OKC certainly has a young roster that's also never been this far together, and they play a lot of young players. And Mark Daigneault decided to sit Isaiah Hartenstein and start Cason Wallace. I don't think he's going to do that again. I'll tell you why later on. And Indiana certainly looked like the nervous team. A tremendous amount of turnovers and ugly turnovers, too. Now, remember, as we talked about yesterday, Oklahoma City does a lot of things really well, but one of the main reasons they have been historic in their performance this year, already winning 80-plus games. A net that, ultimately when you look at the way Oklahoma City beat teams all year long, their net quite literally was historic. Every one of the metrics that Oklahoma City has, both on offense and defense, indicate a historic team. Their average margin of victory this year, which is what net is and differential, is plus 12.9. Just to give you some perspective, the second highest net in the West this year was Minnesota, plus 5. Okay, the highest net in the East was Cleveland, plus 9.5, which is really good, but plus 12.9. When you are beating teams on an average of 13 points a night, you are historically good. Top 5 offense, top 5 defense, all the metrics and the data, sorry, people that want data, whatever it is, ultimately indicate that this is a historically special team that should win the world championship, and I still believe they're going to. But the thing that they really do that makes them stand out among their peers, it's two-tiered. They force you to turn the ball over, and they take care of the basketball themselves. And then typically what they do is they capitalize on your turnovers to get points off of them. They did not do that last night. Okay, so Indiana, they did finish with 24 turnovers. I believe that was the number, 24 turnovers, but 20 of them came in the first half. So they really, really had a loose start to the game. Then they settled in the second half and started taking care of the basketball. The problem is, if you're Oklahoma City turned their 24 turnovers into 11 points. 11 points off of 24 turnovers, it feels like that's a fake stat. Because if you get 24 extra possessions, and if you just times that by 2, and you're not going to get a bucket off of every possession, but 48 points, at least you want to get 25 to 30 points off of 24 turnovers, and that's at least. They got 11 points off of Indiana's turnovers. So I'm watching the game last night, and it ultimately existed in this space where Oklahoma City was up between like 8 and 13 for like 40 minutes or whatever it was. And that's where the game existed. But every time the turnovers continue to pile up, and Oklahoma City was unable to capitalize on those turnovers. And Rick Carlisle said this himself at halftime. It's like, look, the bad news is we can't take care of the basketball. The good news is we're still within shouting distance because, quite honestly, they should have been down 20 to 25 at halftime, and Oklahoma City should have won that game by 20 points last night. There's no other way to put it. If Indiana is going to be that loose with the basketball, you have to turn those turnovers into points. Now, remember, the other thing we talked about is when Mark Daigneault goes small, he relies on his wings to go get rebounds, and he has good rebounding wings. Lou Dort last night, a couple of big-time offensive rebounds in the first quarter. Shea can rebound well for a guard. Jalen's a big-bodied guard. Cason Wallace is not. I'll get back to this. Like I said, I don't think the Cason Wallace thing in the starting lineup is going to work for Mark Daigneault. We'll see what he does. You bring in Caruso off the bench. He's a good rebounding guard. But last night, Indiana out-rebounds Oklahoma City 56-39 because Mark Daigneault decided he was going small. He was going to be stubborn. And Rick Carlisle, to his credit, did not do that. And actually, Indiana got the rebounding from their guards in a way that Oklahoma City did not. Aaron Nesmith had 12 rebounds last night. Tyrese Halliburton had 10 rebounds last night, and Pascal Siakam had 10 as well. Miles Turner, their starting center, was their fourth leading rebounder with 9 because the guards rebounded so well. That allows Indiana to play small. And if Oklahoma City is going to be stubborn and do that, they need more energy on the glass from Chet, who only had 6 rebounds. It was a bad Chet game last night. He only played 24 minutes because they were staggering minutes between Hartenstein and Chet. I think that's going to change. Caruso was solid off the bench because he always is. This comes down to one thing, though, and this is not something you can measure if you're an analytical guy who measures basketball with your calculator, and this is more of a ancillary intangible. This is just a group that will not stop until there are zeros on the clock. And that sounds pie in the sky, kind of corny. There are plenty of teams in pro basketball that when the rubber meets the road, they feel like they're beaten, they're done. It's 1, 2, 3 Cancun. And for Rick Carlisle to be able to instill the belief in his players, and it is based off of results, because Tyrese Halliburton talked about this after the game. It's not just what they did last night. It's not just what they did to the Knicks. It's not just what they did to the Cavs or the Bucks. I mean, they've sent Giannis home, Donovan home, Jalen Brunson home. And I don't think they're going to send SGA home, but they have the 1-0 lead. But it's not just what they've done in the postseason. This is who they've been since January. Since the start of January, the 2 best teams in pro basketball. Number 1, Oklahoma City Thunder. Number 2, the Indiana Pacers. These are the 2 best teams in the NBA since January. I just don't know how many people are paying attention. This is who they've been. It's who they are. Now, a couple things last night that I completely whiffed on. Porter referenced Andrew Nembhard's play in the fourth quarter. Now, Aaron Nesmith clearly has a little bit of an ankle thing still, even though he was a dog last night as well. But Rick Carlisle threw Andrew Nembhard on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the fourth quarter to give Aaron Nesmith a bit of a break. And Nembhard gives up about 5 inches to SGA. But that dude is a pit bull. I mean, I love the way he plays. He just gets up in you and he lets you know, I'm going to be here all night. So for all the conversation about the Tyrese Halliburton game winner, and Tyrese deserves it, 5 either game-winning or game-tying shots with less than 5 seconds left in the playoffs. Okay, if you go back to 1997, since 1997, now this is a convenient way to frame it because 1997 was the last year of peak Michael Jordan, as Jazz fans know. But since 1997, LeBron James has 8 game-tying or giving your team the lead shots are in the final 5 seconds of a playoff game. LeBron has 8. In second place is Reggie Miller with 5 and Tyrese Halliburton with 5. And Tyrese hasn't played near the amount of playoff games that those two have played, let alone all the other people in that conversation, namely Kobe Bean Bryant. Was surprised that he wasn't on the list. So certainly Halliburton came up clutch last night, but prior to Halliburton's game-winning shot, he was a wallflower. This is why this debate about Halliburton is interesting. And I guess when it comes to your definition of a superstar, reasonable minds can disagree. But one of the reasons why, and by the way, I'm still in this space where I don't view Halliburton on the level of Jokic or Giannis or Luka or SGA. Like, he is not one of those players. Okay, if you ask any roster constructor in pro basketball, name the players that you would most want to start your franchise with, Tyrese would not be listed alongside some of the other names I just mentioned. And last night was an indicator. As I'm watching the game, I'm like, where is he? You're too good to be a wallflower. He was rebounding, and he's not a great defender. He was doing his best to keep up because Oklahoma City was doing everything they could to put Halliburton in their primary ball screen action to make sure that, A, it's a better matchup for Shea, and B, you make sure that Tyrese is tired down the stretch. But he didn't score his first points until like 3 minutes left in the first. I don't even think he got a shot off. And certainly being a star player, and if you're a lead guard, it's much more than scoring. And like I said, he had 10 boards and 6 assists. Only 3 turnovers in 39 minutes against that defense as a lead guard is a good number. But I'm watching all game. I'm like, where is he? You know, we're seeing Miles Turner in a lot of action. We're seeing Pascal Siakam, who once again was really good, and Siakam's a great player, but I'm waiting for Halliburton to kind of show up. And sure enough, down the stretch, as this 8 to 12 point lead starts to dwindle, and Oklahoma City goes more or less ISO for either Shea or Jalen, and they start missing some of the mid-range shots, and Nembhard hits his step-back three against Shea when he shakes him, and it was really nice. I'm going, all right, this is kind of setting itself up once again for a Tyrese Halliburton moment, which leads us to the final stanza, where Shea was being guarded by Nembhard. He gets some separation, and it's a great look. And for all the love Indiana deserves about their never say die attitude, the luck that they have been receiving. I mean, the Halliburton game winner against the Knicks that went off the back iron, it bounced up like 30 feet. The TV camera lost it. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, when he gets to that spot, free throw line extended about 14, 15 feet away from the bucket, that is cash. That's the look you want. But he misses it. He goes long. Halliburton gets the rebound, and I said right away when I saw that it was Cason Wallace who picked him up, and look, Cason Wallace is a good defensive player. I'm not saying he's not. But if Rick Carlisle calls a timeout, they get the rebound with 10 seconds left. They instantly find Tyrese. He dribbles it up, and Cason picks him up. And when, I'm sure Rick Carlisle thought this, when Rick saw that it was Cason and not Lou Dort, who fights over screens, by the way, like he's a defensive end evading offensive lineman. It's amazing watching this dude guard. And Tyrese couldn't do anything if Dort was the primary defender. But when Rick saw that it was Cason, no timeout. Go ahead. Guard Tyrese Halliburton with Cason Wallace, who, again, is a good on-ball defender, but Tyrese is bigger than he is. And if you go back and watch the replay, it was bad defense from Cason. That's too much space to give Tyrese Halliburton. Now, give Tyrese credit for shaking him and getting a couple of feet. But right when I saw, because when Tyrese has space, he's dangerous. He just has this weird little hitch, push set shot, where it's tough for him to get space unless they go 1-4 flat and he's able to get some penetration with a step back. There was a cut from the right side that essentially drug Caruso close to the baseline, so Caruso didn't hedge out and help. But Cason gave him too much space, and boom, knocks down the mid-range jumper, 0.3 seconds left. For all intents and purposes, game over. That building was stunned. And it was remarkable to watch Indiana do it again. 5 comebacks while being down 15 points in the fourth quarter. Like, they're breaking every single record. Prior to last night, when teams were down 9 in the final 3 minutes of an NBA Finals game since 1971, 0-182. Every single time Indiana does this, the stats and info department comes up with a stat where you're kind of like, wait, no one has ever done what they've done before. This is a historic run, even if it doesn't end in a championship. But you know what? It just might. It might be their year. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Coming up on the other side, more of this. We'll talk some Jazz basketball, some lottery with Chris Mad Dog Russo. We have Howard Beck. We have Zach Harper, Gordon Monson, too. We've got a busy Friday show, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. All right, Friday show rolling along here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Our next guest, I like to call him a friend, but a mentor first and foremost. Best known, I don't know these days, Chris Russo, Mad Dog. Of course, Mr. Russo, best known for me with Mike and the Mad Dog. My question out of the gates, these days, what do you get recognized for the most?
First take.
Okay.
No question about it, Spencer. First take. If I'm in New York, Mike and the Mad Dog too, because you just said it was a 19-year show. But as far as the overall thing, if I'm bouncing around, a little first take. That would be the one in the power of television. Stephen A. That would definitely be the one. Sirius is a little different because it's sort of it's a little nichey. So from that standpoint, not everybody kind of puts everything together right away. It takes them a minute or two to realize, oh yeah, that's the guy. Mike and the Mad Dog saw me plenty of times. It's different, and of course, the first take you're on there constantly. So the first take one is by far the best.
Okay,
as far as recognition is concerned.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I certainly tune in when you're on that show. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I should lead with thank you so much for your time. You're very kind to do this. It's been too long. Every time I watch you on First Take, I have this thought: like, is it different or is it similar? to the way you and Mike approached the show back in the day, because a lot of people don't necessarily remember. In my opinion, you guys were the origin of what the modern day debate shows have become. So this is not a new thing for you. Is doing First Take different, or is it similar to what you did with Mike and the Mad Dog back in the day?
No, it's similar.
Yeah.
It's it's a little bit more specific on a topic. It's not as, the Mike and the Mad Dog thing would do anything. It's a little bit more NBA, NFL dominated. And you got more than just two people in there, because it's very rarely just Steve and I. Sometimes it's, it could be football season. You got two or three different guys in there. Basketball season, you got two or three different guys in there. So it's very rarely just the two of us. It's more of a trilogy per se. So from that standpoint, it is a little different. But from the amount of people. But I mean, the idea is the same. The idea is to move the needle. The idea is to give, obviously, your opponent a chance to talk. Your idea is to, give your opinion, and hopefully it's organic enough, and hopefully it's a situation where it spurs debate, and hopefully it's opposite what your opponent, in this case Steve, has. So in other words, I might have one opinion, and if it really works properly, it would be nice if Steve had the other opinion, and Mike and I the same scenario too. So I think there's debate shows on TV came from duet shows on radio. So it's the same theme. There are some intricacies that are a little different. You want to talk a little quicker on TV. You want to be in and out a little quicker. Radio, there's a little bit more of a filibuster element to it. But, I mean, the same idea holds both ways.
Chris Russo. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish, dog.
No, just have an opinion. Okay. I think that's the most important thing, to go out there and have an opinion. And be, part of being good on radio or TV is being a salesman. You want to be able to sell your opinion, even if you think, or even if people don't think it's right, you want to make a good case for it. And for the most part, you try to do that a little more so on TV than you do on radio, but you try to make a good case for it.
For sure. Chris Russo, better known as the Mad Dog, is our guest here on ESPN 700 on a Friday afternoon. Mr. Russo, I'm going to call you that all interview long, probably. You were one of the first people I thought about when the news came down that the New York Knicks had fired Tom Thibodeau. And it just has been so long since they've been relevant at all. And, 4 playoff appearances in 5 years, back-to-back 50-win seasons for the first time since 94-95, first Eastern Conference appearance since 2000. And it's been so fun for me to watch this team rise to relevance again and reconnect with a lot of my friends that I grew up with back east in Southern Connecticut and the surrounding area. And no part of me thought that he was in danger of losing his job. And I will allow and concede that I think he was probably outcoached in the Eastern Conference Finals by one of the best coaches in pro basketball, who's now in the NBA Finals, and we'll get to the finals in a moment. But what was your reaction when you heard the news that Tom had lost his job? And now that it's been a few days, why do you think it happened, and who do you think was behind the decision?
Well, listen, I never trust the owner. So I was, you never know with him. That's, of course, Jim Dolan. But I'm with you. After they beat Detroit, you figured they'd be in good shape. He would have actually been better off if they lost a Game 7 to Boston in a classic series. Tatum doesn't get hurt, than beating the Celtics, whetting everybody's appetite, and then losing to Indiana. The whole series, and maybe this next one will be that way as well with OKC, but the whole series obviously turned on the whole situation with Game 1 with the 14-point lead, and then Naismith making all those threes there in the in the last 58 seconds of that game, and then of course the 2 missed free throws and the shot that Halliburton took that bounced high and went in. And then overtime, the whole series changed with that. If the Knicks had won that game, they would have been a minimum 7th game, and I think they would have probably won the series, because I don't know if they would have lost a back-to-back Game 7 at home. So, but once he beat the Pistons, I thought he was okay. Once he beat the Celtics, whoever thought he'd be, and remember, the Tatum injury had nothing to do with it because they were up 3-1 when he got hurt. Once they beat Boston, I thought he was in great shape. I thought they beat Indiana. I thought it would be a very close series. I wouldn't stake my life on it, but I thought that they would not lose back-to-back Game 7s at home to the Pacers, so I thought they'd win that series. But listen, I think it's a group thing. First off, Dolan, nobody makes a decision regarding the Knicks or the Rangers or the head coach without going through Dolan first. He's got to write a check for $30 million, and because you got to pay him off. And, you can make the argument that Dolan made this call more than anybody else. A lot of people tell me that Worldwide West, who the hell is he? Who knows? He's sort of an influencer, brought Kenny Payne to Louisville. How'd that work out? A lot of people think he had something to do with it because it was no secret that he and Thibodeau couldn't stand each other. And then you had Leon Rose, who, listen, he's got a lot on the line here. Made a bad trade with Bridges, but he was the former agent for Thibodeau. Maybe he has. It's really kind of hard to figure why. First off, it's a stupid decision, and Leon Rose has made good decisions. Dolan has stayed out of it for the most part, it appears, for the last couple of years. So why would he get involved now? And Worldwide West is not really in that decisive decision-making scenario. So it is tricky to pin it on anybody. But here's what I would say. If Jim Dolan wanted Tom Thibodeau to be his head coach, he would have told Rose and Worldwide West, guys, just as you said, Spence, back-to-back 50-win years. Eastern Conference Final. There's only 2 teams in the NBA who had better years than we did. We're not firing him. And he did not say that. So he's culpable too. And I think the fact that the Knicks are going to try to convince somehow, some way, Jason Kidd in Dallas to come to New York tells you that they don't really have a plan B. Their number one guy to replace Thibodeau is an existing head coach who signed to a big contract. That's their number one guy. That's a little odd. Who's going to coach Cooper Flagg, and you're going to have to give him compensation to get him? That is a little odd. So the Knicks look terrible here. They did a bad job. The whole world knows it was stupid. Thibodeau's did a hell of a job. All right, you want to say Carlisle was a little better? All right, well, then he was also better than Atkinson. He was also better than Doc Rivers, and now he might be better than Doc. No. So let's keep that in mind, too. But nobody in New York can quite figure it out. Everybody realizes this is a decision that was kind of difficult to stomach. So I feel bad for Thibodeau. He's a hell of a coach. We'll see if he runs at it again down the road. And I heard he's very down on what happened here. I think he was definitely surprised. I don't think he saw this coming. And nor did anybody else, by the way, here in New York City.
It's almost like don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Like this, for the first time, Mr. Russo, the Knicks seem to have played the long game and built up a team that had something to say about things in the Eastern Conference for a while if they just allowed this process to continue. And what essentially made them more or less irrelevant in the landscape of pro basketball for nearly 2 decades, if not a little more, was impulsive, emotional decision-making from an owner that doesn't know his elbow from his you-know-what. And I thought, to your point, go build your sphere, go play your kazoo, go be in your band, stay out of it, let the grown-ups run the team. And this, to me, is a couple of steps in the wrong direction, and it just reeks of Isaiah Thomas, Mike D'Antoni, Derek Fisher, Kurt Rambis, Jeff Hornacek, and all of those people are, solid guys, and some are good coaches, and Mike Woodson did a good job for a minute there in New York, but it's almost like they reverted back to the emotional decision-making that made them irrelevant for 2 decades after you finally built something up. And we'll see what happens moving forward because the roster is still solid and they have a lot of good players. But these types of decisions are exactly why they were basically irrelevant for nearly 25 years,
100%. And I actually think Indiana was better than the Knicks player for player. I think the Knicks may have had, with Brunson and Towns, you could say they had the 2 of the 3 best players. But I think if you look at the whole roster, bench, of course, included, I thought Indiana was a little better. But, yeah, this is a very puzzling decision. And Leon Rose doesn't make a lot of bad ones. So that is, he hasn't at least, and he hasn't been impetuous, as you just said. So that makes me think that somebody must have told him here something was going on because he hasn't made these bad decisions with his coaches. He hired the right guy, and he let him coach for 5 years, and they were successful. So all of a sudden, Leon gets off it. It is a little – and he's his former agent. It is very strange. I do know that that Thibodeau and Worldwide West did not like each other. Worldwide West has done nothing in his career, no rings. He hasn't won any college championships. He's never built a team. So the fact that but he's, he works for Rose. So you wouldn't think he'd go over Rose's head, go right to Dolan. So that's why it's very puzzling. It's a very, very strange decision. Nobody here can quite figure it out. where they go now for a head coach. I mean, again, I don't think they want Mike Brown. I don't think they want Mike Malone. I thought maybe Billy Donovan, because he would be maybe easier to get. We'll see what kid they know. They're not getting a Houston coach. Why would Dallas allow the Knicks to have Kidd without compensation? Knicks have no draft picks to give him. Now, why would Kidd want to leave Dallas anyway? I mean, you got Cooper Flair coming there, for crying out loud. You got him. He's 17 years old. I mean, the guy might be an all-timer. So why would you leave coaching him? I know the Eastern Conference is a little easier, at least next year, but why would you leave that to come to work for Dolan? I would never do it. So we'll see where they go. But everybody puzzled, and it was a decision that reverberates. It makes the Knicks look bad. Just as you said, they haven't made a lot of bad decisions, and here they made a bad one. So you're 100% right.
One more thing here, and I do want to talk NBA Finals with you, Mad Dog, before I set you loose, because I do think, the messaging as far as the statement goes, and then other sources that have leaked information across the landscape of the past few days is, well, we want to take the next step. We want to win a championship. I could make the argument that this Knicks team was ahead of schedule by beating Boston. I feel like they were put together with the idea of Boston maybe having 1 or 2 more years, and then they're going to have to break their roster down because the new ownership group probably doesn't want to write a luxury tax check of $500 million just to have the team. And so when the Celtics are broken down, then I felt like this Knicks team was ready to take that step. So I really think Tom actually brought them ahead of schedule this year, going to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I think if they want to win a championship, they have a roster construction issue they have to figure out, and I think it comes down to Cat. Now, Cat just played some of the best basketball that I've ever seen him play in the spring, okay? So I want to give him credit for that. But defensively, I mean, we talk a lot about Nesmith making his threes in Game 1. Those were walk-in practice threes with not a lot of defensive pushback. And more often than not, the only time I thought the Knicks had a chance in the series is when they were actually guarding. Now, this is not a team in the ilk of 1995. Charles Oakley's not walking through that door, et cetera, et cetera. But I think if they want to take the next step, they've got a roster issue, and I think it comes down to Cat. Do you think they look at a deal for a Durant or a deal for a Giannis? I mean, even Lauri Markkanen out here in Salt Lake is available. I'm not saying that makes sense. But if they want to take the next step, it doesn't matter if their coach is Tom Thibodeau, Jason Kidd, whoever. I think they have a roster construction issue. Do you think they adjust and pivot with their personnel this offseason?
Well, I don't think Giannis is coming here, so that's number one. I think if the Bucks want Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, I wouldn't want Karl Anthony Towns to build my franchise around. That is not what I would want. So from that standpoint, I think if he goes anywhere, it might be the Spurs. So or Toronto. So I'm not in love with getting that. And you're right, the roster is where it is. I don't know exactly what they could. They have no draft picks based on that Bridges trade. They only got a 5. I don't pay too much attention to this capologist nonsense, but they only got a $5.5 million mid-level exception. And the other thing you got to remember with the Knicks, what would they bring in here? Ever they bring in here next year, they're going to win. They're going to get to the finals. I mean, you can't bring somebody in here to lose in a conference final. What's the point of doing that? And next year, the East is going to be very easy. And so as a result, if you somehow don't get to the final next year, you're dead. I mean, the Celtics don't have Tatum. Lillard's not playing for Milwaukee. Embiid, who knows? You got Cleveland. We'll see how they respond. And you got Indiana. I mean, there's nobody else. The East stinks. So that puts an awful lot of pressure on a coach coming in here knowing that he better get to an NBA final if he doesn't want to hear from the fans. I think they're in a little bit of a tough spot. I completely agree, and I think they put more pressure on themselves with this decision, which I think it's going to make everybody say, well, hold on now, you fired Thibodeau and he didn't get to the final. How come the next guy loses in the second round? How does he stay? So I think that plays into it too. Remember, before Thibodeau, they had 12 coaches. I'm sorry. They won one playoff. I think it was 12. In the last 25 years, they've had 12 coaches. They won one playoff series. Larry Brown and Derek Fisher and David Fizdale and, go on and on and on. One playoff series. With Thibodeau, they won 5. So, I mean, the next guy next year is going to have to win 3. I don't know what the Knicks' solution is. I think they're a good team. I think they're a tough team. But I don't think necessarily they are a championship team. And as we swing to Indiana quickly, let's remember this too. Maybe Indiana, losing to them is not going to be such a big deal. I mean, maybe they beat Oklahoma City. And maybe they beat Oklahoma City easier than they beat the Knicks after what we saw in Game 1, where they continually do these miracle pullbacks and win these crazy games. And, you know, I wasn't that impressed with Oklahoma City last night, who gave up, by the way, 60-something points in the second half and allowed Indiana to shoot 52%. So the idea that, no, listen, OKC can still come back and win, but that was an awful, awful loss. So who knows? Maybe Indiana wins the whole thing, makes the Knick loss look a little better. So a lot of interesting issues with the Knickerbockers here in New York right now. A lot of issues.
One question about our local basketball team as we find ourselves in uncharted territory, you know, in the Millers' 40-year stewardship of the Utah Jazz, more or less every year. While we've never won a championship out here, we've always had really good teams, and the rebuilds have only taken 1 or 2 years, and they were able to bridge the gap between Stockton Malone to Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer, and then it was Gordon Hayward, and then Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. We're about to enter our 4th year of a rebuild after Ryan Smith bought the team from the Millers and Danny Ainge left the Celtics for the Jazz. Austin Ainge, Danny's son, was just hired to run basketball operations. But I wanted to get your take, Mr. Russo, on the lottery situation.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Yeah,
it's a joke.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, there's no way that Dallas and San Antonio should have been 1-2 in the lottery. And Utah, what are they, 4th, 5th, whatever it might be? Them
5th.
Charlotte?
Yeah, we're 5th.
Wizards. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, the idea that the NBA's got to do this because these teams lose on purpose to get these picks the last 15, 20 games of the year is an absolute disgrace. But I know they waited. We all know that, and it's ping pong balls and all that. But Dallas has a 1.7% chance to win the lottery, and they win flag. I mean, that is a little rough. I don't know what the solution is, but it's a disaster. I mean, it drives you crazy, and I don't like it. And if you're a Utah fan, you know, Flag's the one guy you wanted to get. He's the one, at least on paper, the one guy there that is the transformational player. And he goes to a team that, traded Luka, and they end up getting another kid now the next year who's 17 years of age. That's why I don't know why a kid would ever leave when he's got this guy for the next 15 years. I know it's the Western Conference. But I feel bad for Utah, and I feel bad for the Wizards, and I feel bad for Charlotte. Those 3 teams had the worst records, and they theoretically should get the 3 top players. Now, I don't know. You know, I understand these teams will lose. They give themselves the better chance to get that worst player, but I'm not sure what the solution is, but I've had enough of the lottery. You know, Atlanta had a 3% chance last year to win the lottery. They won it. I don't like it at all. It's a grab bag. It's a TV show, and I think something needs to be done. Your solution is better than mine. I don't know what exactly you could do.
Well, you know, you could just do inverse order the way pro football does, right? You just reward the top pick to the worst team. Now, that doesn't de-incentivize tanking, which Commissioner Silver has gone on record saying he very much wants to do. But I think the tough thing for us out here in Salt Lake is we're looking at an NBA Finals with Oklahoma City and Indianapolis. And over the past 5 or 6 years, teams in Milwaukee and Denver have been able to win championships, and Minnesota has a good team, and Denver still will have something to say about it as long as they have Nikola Jokic. We have entered, Mad Dog, this era of parity where teams in smaller cities have been able to build up really, really competitive and championship-level teams. And I think I'm just afraid that, you know, the Jazz are going to miss out on this opportunity to build a championship team during this era where teams in smaller markets have been able to do just that.
Well, you have to be lucky. You got to be terrible when that big player comes out, is what it comes down to. You know, San Antonio was terrible. There's Wembanyama, and they got the top pick. Dallas, terrible. They get Flag. He's going to be great, you would think. Top pick. You know, you need to be – I don't know what Giannis' pick was. I don't think he was the top pick. But the bottom line is you need to be an awful basketball team, and then at the right time that the right player comes out of college is what it comes down to. And Utah hasn't had that advantage yet, nor is Charlotte, nor is Washington, nor those kind of teams. And, you know, the NBA is about the great player. You got to get one to win one. And there's only about 10 or 12 out there. You know, Giannis is one of them. Embiid, healthy, is one of them. We all know about Jokic. He's certainly one of them. Luka, probably one of them. LeBron was one of them. You need one of those guys to build your team and have a chance to win, unless you want to get lucky with a guy like Curry, who turns out to be an all-timer when he was the 7th pick in the draft. So, tricky spot for the Jazz. They've been a great franchise, run properly, but sometimes luck is involved here too. They're great there for those years in the 90s, and they got to sit there and they got to deal with Jordan. So, and they lose a couple tough series. So it's tricky. I mean, It's very, very hard to win these championships. You know, there's a reason why the Celtics and the Lakers, what do they got, about 32 of the 70 championships? I mean, you know, that's very few. You know, Jordan's got 6, LeBron's got a half, whatever he's got, 4 or 5. Let's see, what's he got? He's got 4, right? He's got 1 with the Lakers, 2 with Miami, 1 with Cleveland.
Yep.
You know, the Curry's got 4. You know, the one great player dominates and wins a lot of these rings, and Utah hasn't had that great player yet. Sloan, obviously, Stockton great, and Malone great, but they ran into Jordan. For the most part, they haven't had those great players yet. Not one transformational player.
All right, before I set you loose, you referenced it earlier, and like everybody else, I picked Oklahoma City. I actually picked them in 5. And it's funny, dog, I was watching the game with some buddies last night, and after Shea hit the layup to put them up 7 with about, 90 seconds left or so, one of my buddies said, well, okay, that's it. That's over. I said, no, it's not. You didn't watch any of the Nick Indiana series. Sit tight. Let's see how this ends. I am so impressed with them, and I'm so impressed with Rick Carlisle. No part of me will ever be able to cheer for the Indiana Pacers. But last night made things really interesting. I think I'm still leaning OKC, but after last night, what say you about these NBA Finals?
Yeah, I mean, you know, listen, you can begin to start to think it just happens to be Indiana's year. I mean, to win 4 games like they've won in this postseason is miraculous. Last night may have been the biggest one. Well, I guess the Knicks game was in game 1. They were down by more points. But you know, the fact that they only led for 0.3 of a second, I mean, geez, and it was the last basket of the game. You know, I thought OKC in 6. I did think Indiana would be very competitive in this series. You know, I know OKC recovered against Denver and played a great game, too, after they lost kind of a similar game in that first game. But this team right now is more dangerous than Denver was. They're a younger team. They're a hungrier team. They got more of a, you know, this year they got more of a foundation under them. They got a bigger belief than Denver had, I think. You know, Denver a coaching change and, you know, only won the 50 games, everything else. And I think OKC was very familiar with Denver. They're not as familiar with Indiana. So this will be and I think Indiana in game 2, all they got to do in game 2, don't get blown out. You know, don't throw away that first game by getting killed in game 2. I think Denver kind of did that in that second game where they got destroyed and never competitive. Don't let Oklahoma City have an easy game. Put stress on them. Make that game anybody's game with 8 minutes to go. And if you lose, you lose. But you make Oklahoma City get a little nervous. And I think that would be interesting to see how OKC handles that. Now, they did handle that Denver game 4 well when they were down, you know, 8, 9 points in the fourth quarter, and they came back to win. And they did handle game 5 well. Don't get me wrong, because they were in trouble there at 2-2. But Indiana's got a little something going on right now. I would agree with you, Spence. I still think the OKC probably will win. But you know, and Indiana's a good buy. It's worth a shot because of that karma and that belief. And remember, OKC now, so this is the deep end of the pool here. This is not the second round. This is deep end of the pool against a team that has been around a lot with a big coach. So we shall see. But it's got a chance to be a good series now. Has a chance.
Well, Mr. Rousseau, always a pleasure. I still listen whenever I can. And as I often say, when people ask me when I wanted to get into this business, it's when I used to listen to you and Mike driving around town. And so I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. I'll set you loose. And again, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Spence, you do a wonderful, wonderful job. You're a good talk show host, and your old man's a good man. You know that. I love you for it.
No, that's kind of you. Appreciate that. Have a great show today, okay?
All right. Okay, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right. The great Chris Russo, Mad Dog, Mike and the Mad Dog, one of my really, I would say, kind of muses or rosebuds that made me consider doing this for a living a number of different years ago. And Chris is still doing it at a very high level. You can see him, I think it's Wednesdays with Stephen A. Smith on First Take. He has his own show daily on Sirius XM, does Major League Baseball coverage, does a bit of everything, and does it at a very high level. So appreciate Dog's time today on this Friday afternoon. We'll catch a break, and we'll bring in the great Howard Beck coming up on the other side of a Friday drive. It's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. All right, special thanks to Chris Russo, Mad Dog, stopping by to start the show off today. Zach Harper will join us from The Athletic in a bit. Gordon Monson, my old radio partner from the old days at the old station, longtime columnist from the Salt Lake Tribune, is our guest later on. A lot of powerhouse writers on the show today. Howard Beck, one of our favorites from The Ringer on a Friday. Howard, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy Friday. Thank you for bringing me into War on Drugs, one of my favorites.
All I want is the Howard Beck stamp of approval on our musical choice. So you have made my Friday. You have made my weekend, Howard. We will start with news that was made out this way. I don't know if you know Austin Ainge. I don't know if you've ever been able to meet him or get to know him at all. Ultimately, he has been hired as the new the new president of basketball operations for the Utah Jazz. And Ryan Smith himself said during the press conference that this is now the loudest voice in our front office. This is Austin's show. He has final say, meaning his dad reports to him, meaning Justin Zanuck, the general manager, reports to him. So it's not as topical as some of the other things we'll get into, but we are in Salt Lake City. Howard, what's your reaction to the hire that was made this week?
Honestly, I am barely dug into it myself just because I'm at the NBA Finals in Oklahoma. I've obviously been trying to also dig around on some Knicks and Tibbs things and everything else. And like everybody else, I did not see this coming. I did not know they were going to make a hire. I did not know that hire would be another member of the Ainge empire. I kind of just assumed that, Danny, with whatever his title is, CEO, chief executive of being Danny Ainge, that he and Justin Zanuck kind of had this thing pretty well staffed. Those are two seasoned hands and two really smart people. So I'm curious to understand, and I did not catch the press conference again. It's just been a bonkers week. So I did not see the press conference. I saw a couple of the comments from Austin about not wanting to tank anymore, but that should be what anybody would say at this stage. It's not surprising. How this all works, whether it's chain of command, whether it's what the philosophy is now, why they felt they needed another executive in there. I'm honestly, more than I do right now. I am still trying to get a grasp of it, but I'm busy running between NBA Finals games.
Certainly, and I'm going to stretch to try to make this a little more topical, and then we'll get to the things where your energy has been allocated. But you'll be able to handle this just fine, Howard. So here we go. If I look at this from a positive spin, what ownership out here has done, they've extended Will Hardy until 2030. Their front office is now solidified and in place, and it's kind of the anti-Jim Dolan-Nick approach. Now, of course, you need players. It doesn't matter who your coach is. It doesn't matter who your front office is. But for a team that's won 33% of their games for the last 4 years to extend their coach and extend their belief in the front office, I suppose that is an approach that does lead to stability and hopefully, given time, the right choices are made. So, again, while the product on the court continues to suffer and they've got to find players, at least what Ryan and Ashley have elected to do is lock in a coaching staff and a front office for a number of years, if we can look at that as any sort of a positive.
I think it is. The first step in any of these situations is hire the right people, empower them, and especially if you're a team that's in some semblance of a rebuild, you've got to give them the time to do it. Now, it's not in perpetuity, and if they're doing it badly, of course you have the right to, as the owner of the team, to reevaluate, reassess, and dismiss them if they're not doing it. But you've already hired some of the smartest people around. And you've signed off on the let's blow up the team we had with Mitchell and Gobert. Let's go into what was, I think, frankly, kind of a half-hearted rebuild / we're going to retool on the fly thing that I never thought was the right idea. Like, you're either all in or all out, and they needed to just be all in on the tank from the start. This was the first season they really embraced that. I thought they should have been doing it the last couple of years. And then it backfires to the extent that they did not get the top pick in the draft or even a top 3 pick. And at some point you have to kind of, decide what is our way out of the morass. The unfortunate thing, and Zach Lowe and I just talked about this on his pod that'll be posting later today, so people can go listen to us talk about the Jazz quite a bit on that. But, the difficulty is whatever you decide to do, whether you're trying to augment around Lauri Markkanen or whether you decide that the actual path forward is to trade Lauri Markkanen, nothing is getting you back in the mix in the near future anyway, because most of the teams ahead of them are firmly ahead of them. And there's no obvious teams to just really, fall off a cliff. So you probably need to be patient anyway. And I think back to your premise and your question or statement about just the vote of confidence in this group and having continuity. Continuity is good when you have the right people. And they have the right people. I think they have the right coach. I think they have the right front office. Austin Ainge and I have only met a couple times over the years. I don't know him well, but obviously he and Danny both really smart basketball people. I know Justin, smart basketball person. You've got the right people in place, and then sometimes it just takes a little bit of patience, planning, a little good luck, a little opportunism. But they're in a very difficult spot because they happen to be in a Western Conference that's absolutely stacked, where even the teams that are not contenders are really strong, and it's just hard to leapfrog anybody. So you do have to look at your time horizon and say, where is our opportunity to jump back in the mix? Because it's not tomorrow. It's not this next season.
Yeah, no, it's not. And that's why, one more thing here, then we'll move on. I would imagine if you and Zach discussed this situation, you discussed Austin saying we're not tanking anymore, which is all fine and good. But the Jazz own a top 8 protected pick that goes to Oklahoma City if it falls out of the top 8. And look, I don't know your opinion on this roster. If they decide to go best foot forward and play the vets 70, 75 games, Markkanen plays, Kessler plays, Collins, Sexton, all the vets play 70, 75 games or whatever. The fear, I think, in the approach of simply, okay, we are going to try to compete, which I think is a good thing when you look at the lack of integrity they used to approach the unserious competition element of the organization a year ago. I mean, you do want to see the team you cheer for to try hard every night. But if we're sitting here next spring and they've won 35 games and Mark Tatum pulls out the number 9 envelope and it's the Jazz and that goes to OKC, that's a massive step, Howard, in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that would be a blow. I mean, and that was, of course, a different version of this, but that was, the Sixers' fear, a couple weeks ago when they were in this position with a pick that was, of course, also owed to Oklahoma because everybody owes their picks to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I think, listen, I think that mere fact suggests that, yes, they should plan on being bad enough again to keep their pick. The fine line between that and quote-unquote tanking is the scenario you just outlined, and it's interesting. Play all the vets. Zach just said this on the pod that we literally just recorded 20 minutes ago. Zach said, listen, they can play all the vets, all the guys that you just named, and they're still probably a lottery team. They're still probably the 14th team in the West. But at least it would be a respectable version of that. Hey, we tried and we just lost because we don't have the talent. We don't have the guns. And but it would be, I think, more palatable to the fans, I would think. The record wouldn't, but the product would be. It'll be more palatable to the NBA league office, where they won't have to fine you for playing games and shenanigans with injuries and fake injuries and guys just disappearing. And that's why I think the stronger case, tanking or no tanking, the stronger case here with Lauri Markkanen at 28 or whatever and firmly in his prime and with no sense that this team is going to turn it around soonish, it makes more sense for Lauri Markkanen to be somewhere else. And he's got value around the league. And there are teams that, maybe a Lauri Markkanen away from going from play-in to playoffs or from 6 seed to 4 seed or whatever. He's a great complementary star, but he's not a leading man. And, I don't know what you'd get if you put him on the market tomorrow, but I think whatever you got would, put you that much further along toward whatever the next era will be, because I don't think that he's part of the next winning, or at least not the next high-level winning team.
We'll end with the final stuff, but you referenced the New York Knicks electing to move on from Tom Thibodeau, which I just still cannot wrap my mind around. I've read a lot of takes. I've listened to a lot of takes, and there are a lot of people that claim they have sources here or there about it being player-driven, the whole CAA thing, even though Tom was a CAA guy and Leon was his agent. I would venture to guess that a guy like Tom Thibodeau probably does not like a guy very much who goes by the moniker of Worldwide Wes. I can understand that. And they have an owner that has a reputation of making rash decisions based off of emotion in the moment, which is why they've been irrelevant for 25 years. I think it's so dumb, and we'll see what happens next. But throughout the course of your conversations, what were the reasons, and who ultimately was behind this decision to let go of Tom Thibodeau?
It's a mixed bag. And in the moment that it happened, and like we taped a podcast, we taped the Real Ones podcast, Logan Murdoch and I, like immediately after this. And in that moment, I was like talking, I'm not quite in circles, but I was definitely like, I could see it this way, but then there's also this. It's complicated to me. I don't think it's black and white. And I understand like where you're coming from on this, but yes, this was by far the best era of Knicks basketball in a very long time, in a quarter century. 5 very good seasons, back-to-back 50-win seasons, first conference finals in 25 years, all that. Tibbs deserves a lot of credit for that. But it's not just him. Like, the most important reason that they're respectable again is Jalen Brunson. And Jalen Brunson joined the Knicks in part because Jalen Brunson has close ties to Leon Rose, to that front office. There was obviously they got charged with tampering, or they were guilty of tampering. The league docked them a couple second-round picks or whatever it was because of the Rick Brunson element here. Jalen Brunson is the most important reason. Tibbs is among the important reasons, but this is also a team that they've made a lot of smart moves. I mean, they went out and got OG Anunoby. They traded and were willing to pay him. They went out and got Josh Hart, who wasn't exactly in high demand at the moment that they plucked him. Isaiah Hartenstein, DiVincenzo, all the guys they've gotten along the way. And Tibbs created a culture and an ethos that I think was really important in this reemergence. And they got the players who fit him, because that's really important. They got players who were grinders and who would respond to a Tibbs type of approach. He deserves, like Tibbs deserves all the credit in the world, in addition to obviously everybody else I just named, for where they are now. But you do have to reassess at a certain point, or assess and it's not just because they lost in the conference finals. This isn't, they didn't make the finals, we're firing the coach. By everything I've been able to gather over the last couple of days, and by no means is this definitive. I won't say that like I have the definitive version of this. You can find a lot of different versions as you're calling around. But I think that the reservations that the front office had, and I'm loath, as much as I've covered the Knicks over the last 20 years and been in New York, I'm loath to ever dismiss the possibility this was just Dolan being Dolan, but I don't think that was what was going on in this case. I think this was Leon Rose. And Leon and Tibbs have been, tight for a long time too. Obviously, Leon's the one who hired him. I think there was a consensus conclusion in that front office that all the things that you and I already know about Tibbs, or the criticisms that we've all heard, that those things were a concern, whether it's the minutes for the starters, the lack of trust in the bench, the lack of development of the bench, and then finally going to the bench in kind of a too little too late scenario in the conference finals, which just underscored why you should have been playing them sooner, because these guys have had very little run and very little time to get comfortable with each other or with the rest of that lineup. There's also, in today's NBA, we talk a lot about alignment. You want the front office and coach to kind of have a similar vision. Doesn't always happen. We saw how badly that can go in Denver with Michael Malone and Calvin Booth basically blowing each other up, and they both got fired. And that goes back to, again, developing the bench. You need, again, Denver and New York both. You need a coach who's going to trust the front office's investment in certain players, and the front office needs to trust the coach to then develop them. So there's all these things, and I think there were moments over the last couple of years predating the actual firing where there were conversations about, is he the right coach to still go forward with? I've also talked to a couple of coaches around the league the last couple of days, and these are coaches who strongly admire Tibbs, other veterans who have been around a long time, and who basically told me, listen, there are some limits because of the way he coaches and because of the style that he coaches. And like, look at Jalen Brunson and how much he dominates the ball. And you want to pin it on Brunson, you could say that, but the coach is the one who decides what style of play. They are very half-court oriented, but they are also, like, I think tops in the league in shots taken in the final seconds of the shot clock. And the deeper in the shot clock you go, the lower efficiency the shots are. So they need more innovation in that offense. They need to empower Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns more after acquiring those guys, and they can both do stuff with the ball in their hands. Like, there are fair criticisms of Tibbs and the limitations that came with him. That was a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
It was a long-winded but good answer. And, I mean, the one area I would offer pushback, while completely admitting my bias about the way I feel about Tom as a person and a coach, is when you look at their bench, I mean, they've got 6.5 players, maybe 7. I mean, if you're going to stretch and play Campaign and Precious Achua, Landry Shamet, like, I think it's also fair to bring up that that's not a very deep roster, in my opinion. And I think it's hard. The criticisms about Tom waiting until the Pacers series to dust some of these guys off, totally fair, because we had DeLon Wright out here at the U. I mean, he is somebody who has more capabilities as a ball in hand guy than he has shown. They basically only used him as a defensive stopper, but he's not a horrible offensive option, but no confidence because he hadn't played in so long. But the one pushback I would offer to your answer is I don't see a roster that Tom was handed with very much depth, in my opinion.
I wasn't real fond of that bench either, but what we did see, and this is where it backfires, right? You put in DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet, and suddenly they actually got some good minutes out of them. And that was like Tom got credited, as he should, for making that adjustment in the series, and it helped them in those games, which then makes you question, well, then why weren't they good enough to play in the regular season? The other piece of that is players are creatures of habit. They need the rhythm and the familiarity and also the confidence of the coaching staff and of their teammates. And if you haven't been playing them for months and then you're dusting them off at a key moment, you're probably not going to get the best out of them. But I think there's a case to be made. And yeah, these are fringe rotation players, to be sure. But would they have been better rotation players if you had played them a little in the regular season? And the thing with Tibbs has always been he plays every single game. And you can spin this positive or spin this negative, but he plays every single game like the fate of the universe depends on it. He wants to win every single game. And I think that was really beneficial to the Knicks at a time when they were just trying to become respectable again, competitive again. But it backfires potentially when you're at a stage like this where you need guys a little fresher for the playoffs. Other teams are really, their depth is not just because they got better players, but because they invested in those players and played them a lot. And now your guys are gassed when their guys are fresh because they're going 10 deep and you're going 7. And so there's always a little bit of blame to go around on something like this. I do think their bench could be better, should be better, but I also think that Tibbs waited too long. And that's only one piece of this. There was a coach I was talking to the other day. Again, somebody who's been around a long time, assistant coach who's been on a lot of different staffs, coached under a lot of different coaches, and he said that Tom was coaching like it was still the 90s. And I said, whoa, like you mean offensively? He goes both sides, and that was a little surprising to me.
So who ultimately do you think they land on? Because honestly, no matter who it is, I don't know that they get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, there's a case to be made that Boston has some decisions to make, and they'll be without Tatum. Indiana's probably already put themselves in the mix to be the favorite right out of the gates, and there are so many questions with Giannis. Can any of these younger teams take steps up like Detroit or Orlando or whatever? So they'll be in the mix, but based off of what I perceive to be a roster that needs a lot of work, if a coach takes over for Tom and goes back to the Eastern Conference Finals, I'd be wildly impressed because I think Tom really did something that nobody saw coming, even a little bit ahead of schedule, that they actually got to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think we've all heard a lot of the names out there. Who do you think ultimately they land on, Howard, and why?
I have no guess as to who they land on. My buddy Mark Stein has been reporting today that Jason Kidd is not just on their radar, but that they have actually asked for permission from the Mavericks to speak with him, and it's not clear whether the Mavericks are going to grant that permission or not. And then it would be a question of, can you figure out a compensation package, right? Like, we haven't seen this in a long time. We refer to it as a trade. It's not really a trade. It's more just compensation. But, Doc Rivers going from Boston to the Clippers, and the Clippers gave the Celtics a first-round pick as compensation for letting him out of his deal. The Knicks don't have a lot of first-round picks to spare after sending all those picks to the Nets for Mikal Bridges. So giving up draft capital doesn't seem like a wise move to go get a coach who, I don't know if Jason Kidd's an upgrade over Tom. He's different. Whoever they get may not be necessarily, quote unquote, demonstrably better, but just different, right? And I think different is what they're looking for right now. just a hunch on my part. I think Taylor Jenkins makes a lot of sense for them. I wouldn't be surprised if they went that direction. I don't think it'll be Michael Malone for reasons that I've already kind of alluded to. And I just think that what they're looking for now is somebody who, one, is more of a relationships guy. That's not Tibbs's reputed strength. So relationships, whether it's, the front office, players, whatever, somebody who's a little bit more of a relationships guy, a communicator, and then two, somebody who might be a little bit more innovative, I would say not more than maybe, but is more innovative on the offensive end and is going to do more to make this less Brunson-centric. And assuming that Bridges and Towns are still on the roster, utilize those guys because, they put a lot in to get those guys and to diversify the offense. This is one of the most expensive starting fives in the NBA. And for good reason. Yeah, the bench, we've talked about, but it's because they're top heavy, and there's more, I think, ability to exploit that talent than we saw this season.
All right, moving over to, teams that are still playing basketball, since you were present for the event that last night. I was talking about this earlier. I was watching the game with a few buddies, and Shea was able to hit that layup. I think it put him up 7 with 90 seconds left or whatever. And one of my friends said, all right, well, that's probably it. And I said, oh, you haven't been watching the playoffs, because let's sit tight here and see how this goes down. There are so many bullseyes we could aim at, Howard, but I'll give you the space. What were your takeaways from watching yet another Indiana comeback and them being up 1-0 in the NBA Finals?
Just stunning. I mean, I was at the Garden for a couple of those Halliburton moments, and of course we've all watched, the other moments he's had against Cleveland and Milwaukee. It's almost expected at this point. He pulls up for that shot. You're like, of course he's going to make it. This is just what he does now. Tyrese Halliburton's become one of the best postseason clutch shooters of all time in the space of about a month. These were all iconic, incredible shots and stretches of shots, and it's remarkable. The guy is just cold-blooded, and what a fun moment, unless you're a Thunder fan. This is one of the loudest. I think it might be the loudest arena in the NBA. I hadn't been here in a long time. I'd forgotten, and just last night it was a rude reminder of just how much it hurts your ears. And, to be able to silence that place is a feat unto itself. I don't know there's anything to draw from that game basketball-wise, only because, not because it's fluky, but it's because, you can talk about all the adjustments and schemes and everything in the world. And yes, there are things that the Thunder could have done better here or there where, one basket would have made a difference and they don't lose. But sometimes it's just the talent of one guy being able to hit a shot like that in a moment like that.
So ultimately, this conversation about who Halliburton is a little bit exhausting, because ultimately, I suppose a superstar player is left to the definition of the individual who's having the conversation. I'll ask you, though, because you were really high on him a long, long time ago. Is he better than you ever thought he could be based off of how he's evolved?
I thought early on in Sacramento, and it's funny because at the time, Kings folks were talking about we think he's really going to be a really good defender across 3 positions and everything else. And it's funny because the defensive part of it has kind of faded or receded over time as he's emerged more as a playmaker and scorer. He's not your prototypical high usage guard in the mold of a Harden or Westbrook or anybody in this age who everything revolves around me. Jalen Brunson would be another one, or certain versions of Trae Young. Halliburton, he's more like Steve Nash, where he's going to get the ball up court quickly. He's going to make those hit-ahead passes. He's going to pass it early in the shot clock, and then maybe it'll come back to him and maybe it won't. But it sets the tone for the whole team, and so his selflessness is part of the allure there, where he can do some things with the ball in his hands, but he's not the classic, I'm just going to back you down or beat you off the dribble or, ISO at the elbow, and it's not revolving around him. He's not going to dominate the ball and dominate the offense. And then he's got this funky, unconventional shot, but he's such a embrace the moment kind of player. There are guys who can average 25, 30, but aren't necessarily that great in the clutch and maybe don't necessarily want those moments. Again, James Harden comes to mind. And then Halliburton's the inverse, where he's not high usage. He's not going to necessarily dominate the ball or drop 35 every night, though he's capable of doing it on occasion. But he's going to play a really efficient game. He's going to keep the ball moving. He empowers his teammates. And then when it's showtime and it's crunch time, there's no shot that's too big for him or moment that's too big for him. And it's incredible. Like, that's an uncanny thing that you cannot properly quantify. You just watch a guy do that over and over, and you go like, yeah, that dude is clutch by definition, and he's got something special, and it's hard to define. You just know it when you see it.
I know you're not big on predictions, but before I set you loose, I'll ask you like this. Like the rest of the free world, I picked Oklahoma City to win the series. I said 5 games. They'll have to win 4 straight to do that. I still lean that way. I don't know that I feel like it's 5. And I will put the disclaimer that as a basketball fan, I just want to see really good games, and I would love to see 7 really good games. If that was the case, it would be awesome. We're 1-for-1. Oklahoma City has already been installed as a 10.5-point favorite on Sunday night. So I know you're not big on predictions, but as far as what you saw last night, do you feel like there's still a genuine possibility that OKC makes this a short series? Does it feel like it's going to be long with a lot of really close, fun games?
Yeah, I picked Oklahoma in 5 as well before the series started. So I was present for and covering Lakers-Sixers back in the day when the Sixers stunned them in Game 1.
Yep.
First postseason loss of that postseason for the Lakers, and then the Lakers just stomped them for the next 4 games. That's a little different when you got Shaq. Shea is awesome, but he's not Shaq. And I don't expect we're going to see that play out. So probably the Thunder in 5 that you and I both picked is probably not the case, but Thunder in 6 certainly feels like a possibility. But I mean, there's a certain point where no matter how many times we see it, we're still a little, not just skeptical of the Pacers. It's not disrespect. It's just like, yeah, the Thunder just have more. There's more reasons to believe in them than the Pacers at this stage. But when the Pacers have done what they've done over and over again, defied expectations so many times, taken down all these teams that were higher ranked and with better records, at a certain point, maybe we should just sit back and say this series is not as clear-cut as we thought it was. And maybe the Pacers can win this thing. And look, they stole home court advantage. They won in one of the toughest buildings in the NBA. I'm done predicting. How about that?
What does a hip Brooklyn NBA writer do with 2 free days on his hands in Oklahoma City?
I'm working, man. It's not like days off. There was no practices today. That's how they always build the schedule. There's no availability after Game 1, but they have practice tomorrow, and then we'll have Game 2 on Sunday. There's some downtime, but listen, I'm making calls and trying to find out what the Knicks were doing with Tibbs and trying to figure out, working on some other stories along the way here. I did hit my favorite breakfast spot here that I had. They do like an all-day breakfast that I had not been there in years. Kitchen 324, absolutely phenomenal. Ran into multiple NBA types over there, so clearly the secret's out. There's no secret actually. It was like a 45-minute wait, but that's it. I'm just looking for good food, Spence, and trying not to melt in the humidity out there.
Okay, I like the positive attitude. Howard, thanks for the time. Have a great weekend, and we'll chat soon. Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. Take care.
Howard Beck covers the NBA for The Ringer. He has been at Sports Illustrated, the New York Times, the LA Times. He's been one of my favorite NBA writers for probably 25 years now. Always appreciate Howard's time when he stops by. At Howard Beck is where you find him on your preferred social media platform. His preferred social media platform is not the one owned by the ex-best friend of the President of the United States. I'll just leave that there. Stops by today, courtesy of our friends at IFA Country Stores. When the seasons change, if you're like any good coach, you'll put together your game plan for a healthy green lawn. And you'll turn to the experts at IFA. Check out their 4+ lawn care program, everything you need to make your yard a hit. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move at IFA and IFA.coop. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Coming up on the other side, the University of Utah basketball program has a point guard. Tell you about him. The Ringer has released their list of the top 100 players in the NBA. There is a jazz man on it, singular. We'll tell you where that jazz man landed. We still have Howard Beck and Gordon Monson set to join the program. Busy Friday drive, and it's good to have you along for the ride right here on ESPN 700. guy, right?
A little Coulter for you.
Is it Coulter Wall?
Yeah, that's correct.
I was recently, I think you referenced that you liked his music a few years back. Don't you go to his shows every time he comes to the market?
So I know his manager.
That's right.
So there's I helped book some of his stuff. Actually booked his first show in Salt Lake, which was for like a few hundred people at the Urban Lounge. He's now playing like stadiums, huge festivals. So his first show was like, I think we had 270 people there at the Urban Lounge.
He's playing stadiums now?
Wow. I don't know if there's been like a full stadium, but big venues. Like I think the last one here was even just Red Butte, right? Is a much bigger venue, but he's doing much bigger shows. I don't know if he would do a stadium. Like if you asked him, it might not be his scene.
Well, I think if the paycheck was right, he'd do a stadium, wouldn't he?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe like a month and a half ago, a buddy of mine whose musical taste I respect was like, hey, have you heard of this Coulter Wall guy? I'm like, yeah, my producer likes him. He's like, dude, he's great. So I've been listening a little bit. It's what is it? How'd you characterize it?
This and Coulter perfectly encapsulates why our view of country music is so different. I would say his is almost more like country western, where country music that folks who listen to Dave Matthews, respectfully, think of is like Alan Jackson. It's like 90s.
Ooh.
It's like Toby Keith.
Yeah.
It's Tim McGraw. It's guys that respectfully I don't even listen to and consider like a completely different form of country music. They're fine. They have their lane. But yeah, that kind of shows the delineation there.
So Coulter's like he's like Luke Bryan, right?
No,
He's like
Luke's very much more so on the, beer and jeans and
all those guys
Friday
have whiskey
night.
issues. I'll tell you what. Like Morgan Wallen. You know who Morgan Wallen is?
I know who he is.
He's what is he?
He's more new pop country, I would say.
Pop country. Is that the term? So like Morgan Wallen's kind of like Zach Bryan or
yeah.
I'm just glad that
Coulter Wall plays music that you would hear 70 years ago.
Well, I'm also glad that Coulter's name is Coulter and not Luke or Zach or Brian, because that's like all the hybrids. But Morgan Wallen was on SNL, so I heard a song. It seems like all these guys have this, like Zach Bryan, Morgan Wallen, they all have the same song where it's like they meet a girl, they like the girl, they drink whiskey, they lose the girl, so they're singing about how they shouldn't drink whiskey and get the girl back.
Yeah. And it's kind of like just an overplayed out version. It's like an overplayed out, it sounds like it was maybe written by ChatGPT version of a song you've heard how many times?
Yeah.
That's kind of why I don't really go down that lane.
Do you like Cold as much as you like Landlaw? Is that the same type of feel? How are our guys doing, dude? I haven't checked in on our guys' Landlaw for a while.
Oh my goodness,
dude! I'm telling you, this is. I often mock social media because I really think it's a cesspool, and arguing on the internet with strangers is a sign of mental illness, in my opinion. And it really does turn into mentally ill people throwing their feces at each other. But if you get in a rabbit hole, I can fall down as much as anybody else. And when I first heard our guy's Landlaw, A, I thought it was fake. B, respectfully, I thought there was something wrong with them.
Right.
But C, I couldn't stop watching videos. Like they would send out videos of their live performance, just stoked that they got like booked into some bar. And the lead singer would turn the phone around. There's like 7 people in the venue that probably didn't know that this fake country band was there to play music. It's
one of my favorite / least favorite things about the internet and about social media is that it can turn and listen, I'm not speaking down on them. Folks who don't necessarily have the talent to, or historically would have had the talent to make it big, well, they can still be famous, but it might be because people are making fun or because there's some ironic tie into it. And yeah, the folks you were talking about are 2 brothers, I believe, somewhere in the South, who are just the corniest, silliest dudes.
And they're so bad.
But they're awful. But there's like something endearing about it, so that they're getting like this weird, I guess, response of like supportive critique / ironic support. It's been fun to watch.
See, but you can't support that. Here's the problem. Like
there's a lot of it.
But before social media, you didn't hear a band or see a band until they had honed their craft and they're actually worth watching or listening to.
But now you can make money off of the clicks you get just for being bad,
which is so wild. And I'm guilty because I'm telling you, one night I watched every video those guys have posted.
I think I've seen them all.
Every single one is so bad.
There's a lot of them, dude. There are. If you like accidentally get your Instagram algorithm down that rabbit hole, you'll see a lot of bad music. You
sent me one of a young lady. And bless her heart, keep making music. That actually put me in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Her videos, because she's walking towards the camera, and I don't know. Do you remember her name? Should we give her a little love since we're mocking her?
I wish I did.
Let's get a little Landlaw on the show before we say goodnight.
Okay.
That one song they have. I think it's only one song. All right, University of Utah has a new basketball commit. He is a point guard. His name is Ellery Abbey. He is a Finnish point guard. So Ellery Abbey becomes the 9th addition to the new Runnin' Utes roster. So, of course, Alex Jensen, the new staff, a lot of attention is down south right now with Kevin Young receiving a contract extension and A.J. DeBonsa on his way as the number 1 recruit in the country. They've got a team. If I had to guess, preseason BYU is going to be scratching the top 5. Like, that's how talented that roster is. And when it comes to the University of Utah with this new project under Al, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience. I'm sure Ute basketball fans are sick of that. I'm certainly not going to sit here and be the radio host that tells you I watch Finnish basketball when I'm done with the show. I don't know anything about this kid, but we'll just kind of go over some of the pieces of information. So he comes to the University of Utah from Finland's top basketball league, and they have some good basketball in Finland. Obviously, Lauri Markkanen. 6 foot, 180 pounds, 27 games, averaged 20 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, and 27 minutes of action. Those are really good numbers. 48.5% from the floor, 27% from 3, not good. 57% from 2. So if you look at some of these highlights, he's pretty crafty around the rim. Not a big dude. Again, the 9th commit, so Babacar Faye, Don McHenry, Sidhu Traore, Jakari Howard, Elijah Moore, James Okonkwo, Kendall Sanders, Terrence Brown. So Utah's roster now is at 12 players with 3 roster spots open. And we'll see. I mean, ultimately, the staff is in place and the foundation is in place. This is going to be a long game. And I believe Alex received a 5-year contract to be the head coach of the University of Utah. So I would give him all 5 of those years. This is going to take some time. And, of course, when you juxtapose it to what BYU's been able to do in only 1 year under Kevin Young, if that's how you view, if that's your prism, whatever Utah does, what's BYU doing, it's going to take a long, long time before Al has a situation where Kevin Young was able to, cultivate things pretty quickly in 1 year. So there you go, a little bit of University of Utah basketball news. As a Finnish point guard named Ellery Abbey is committed to play for Alex Jensen, the University of Utah. All right, the Ringer updates their top 100 players in pro basketball rather often. They updated it today. And clearly they updated it to put Tyrese Halliburton in their top 10. So according to the Ringer, as of today, their top 10 basketball players in pro basketball. Number 1, Nikola Jokic. Number 2, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Number 3, Giannis. Number 4, Luka. Number 5, Steph. Number 6, Ant. Tyrese Halliburton at 7 now. Donovan Mitchell at 8. Top 10 player. Jazz traded him when he was 25. Jalen Brunson at 9. Jason Tatum is at 10. Victor Wembanyama 11. LeBron's at 12. AD at 13. Kevin Durant 14. Then it goes Kawhi, Cade, Evan Mobley, Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, Jalen Williams. There's your top 20. The Utah Jazz are the only team in pro basketball, according to the Ringer, with a single player in the top 100. They're the only team in the NBA that does not have a player in the top 50. Lauri Markkanen is the only Jazz player in the Ringer's top 100. He comes in at 53. That feels low, in my opinion. But yeah, they ultimately update this rather consistently. And I was surprised to see, I thought Lowry would be somewhere in the early 30s. Maybe Walker sneaks in the top 100, but this is coming off a season where neither of those two played every game they should have, and their minutes were limited. And Walker was encouraged to shoot a bunch of threes down the stretch when the Jazz got fined for sitting their players, so they had to find another way to be unserious about competing. But that dropped not too long ago, the Ringer's top 100 players in the NBA. All right, time now for our You Into Golf PGA Tour update as far as the leaderboard goes. And the world of the PGA Tour has their eyes on the RBC Canadian Open. TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley is their North Course. Cameron Champ, who won a Corn Ferry event here in our market, is your leader through 2 rounds at 12 under par. Andrew Putnam at 10 under par. Then a couple of Canucks, couple of Canadians, Richard Lee and Nick Taylor at 9 under. Let's see. Shane Lowry might be the biggest name. He's at 8 under par. Well, Sam Burns is up there as well. So it is the RBC Canadian Open, and that is your You Into Golf PGA Tour leaderboard update. Check them out at worldwidegolfshops.com. 5 Utah You Into locations. They've got the best deals on Callaway, Titleist, TaylorMade, and Ping, Bushnell as well for the rangefinder stuff. All right, let's welcome in Colton now, head brewer at Roosters on a Friday. Colton, happy Friday, man. How are you? Hello, Colton.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really good. How about yourself?
Well, I appreciate the time. So, Roosters Brewing Company, you guys are celebrating 30 years this summer. What do you want our listeners to know?
Oh, let's see. So we're doing our little 30-year anniversary party the end of the month around, June 22nd June 21st on that Saturday. I'm going to be doing noon to 4 at our 25th Street location out in Ogden. And we've got some old goodies coming back, we've got our 2-bit amber beer out in cans. You can find them around, have them on draft at all the locations. And, we're going to be having old food favorites up on special all summer and all that. So people should stop in, check stuff out.
Tell me about your High Desert Hazy IPA.
So our High Desert is probably one of our best sellers in all honesty. It's good. It's nice and tropical, light, refreshing, good for a nice hot summer day.
2 locations as well as the 21 Plus tap room in Ogden. Tell me about that tap room. I've never been up there. What's it like?
So that's actually our production facility that's got our tap room attached to it. So 21 or older, so it is a bar. Leave the kiddos at home. And it's a really cool spot. We've got a really nice patio right there. With pretty close to the Ogden or the Weber River. It's just nice. It's a great place to have a beer in the afternoon on the patio.
All right. Since you are the head brewer, I've got to ask you, what is the one beer you've created you're most proud of, Colton?
Ooh, that's a difficult one. I'd say one of my most recent ones that I came up with is a chili lime goza that came out just absolutely phenomenal. Trying to go after the tahini flavor and accomplished it. So very unique, different style type of beer, but it was really fun to make.
All right, man. Well, congrats on the 30 years. Appreciate the time. Have a good weekend, okay?
You as well. Thank you.
Roosters Brewing Company celebrating 30 years this summer, throwing it back to 1995 and historic 25th Street, where it all began. 2 locations, as well as a 21 Plus tap room in Ogden. Try their summer seasonals, including the High Desert Hazy IPA or one of the originals 2-bit amber on a special anniversary run this summer. They've got fresh food pairings and throwbacks to the original menu, and they're being featured all summer long. Cheers to 30 years. Our good friends at Roosters Brewing. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Fun 4 o'clock hour ahead. It's Zach Harper and Gordon Monson. Busy Friday drive. Good to have you along for the ride right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. What if I just leaned into it? What if I started like digging Pitbull? Would you still play Pitbull if I actually, because you only do this to ruin my Friday. If I leaned into it and pretended I enjoy it, could we stop it?
No. If you lean in, we're gonna lean in as well.
We're married to it. Well, you know what that means. Ultimately, when Pitbull is played on this radio show, it means it's time for the regular appearance of one Zach Harper on a Friday afternoon. Mr. Harper, happy Friday. Where do we find you?
Los Angeles.
How'd you get out of going to Oklahoma City?
I'm doing these live streams for the NBA for this pregame show on their app. So, it's better if I'm in a stable internet connection.
Well, congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you.
Is this the first year you've done that? And I noticed, I saw some of your social posts. Is this the first year you've done that?
No, I did it last year. It's just it was such a quick finals. We didn't. It's kind of hard to notice.
Tell everybody where they can go find it, Zach.
You just go straight to the NBA app, or I believe it's on any of their socials, Instagram, TikTok, any of that stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's start with the finals, and we'll move in some other directions, including a hire that was made out this way. But I'll tell you what, man, I feel like, I'm not sure who you picked. My guess is, like everybody else, you probably picked OKC. I picked OKC in 5. They'd have to win 4 straight now, and maybe that's still on the table. And I don't know what else to say about this Pacers team, and I just hate the Pacers, but I'm just so impressed that they just don't quit until the zeros are on that clock. Your takeaways from game 1?
Yeah, I had the Pacers to win last night, but I had Thunder in 6. This team's just good. They're really good, and they don't give up, like you said. And it's funny, this is what, their 5th comeback in this postseason, down 15 or more. It's just absurd. And there's a point where I have to think that even a team like the Thunder, there's a point where you're up double digits and it's getting late into the 4th quarter. And then once they get into that single digit territory, you've got to know what's possible here, right? Not just because it's an NBA game, but because it's this Pacers team. And it wasn't just Tyrese Halliburton going nuts. It was Obi Toppin hit some threes, and Miles Turner hit some threes, and Nembhard hit a shot, and Pascal Siakam got a rebound. It's everybody. No one had a good game. Everyone just had solid games last night. And for you to force them into 25 turnovers and only get 11 points off those turnovers is ridiculous. That is just incredible. Incredible basketball by the Pacers. It's rare to, it's almost incomprehensible to say a team played great basketball after turning the ball over 25 times, but they reacted well to those moments, because we've seen so many teams, throughout this playoffs, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Denver Nuggets, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they get those turnovers and they just let it defeat them. And the Pacers, they're just not built that way.
Was there any point last night that you thought Oklahoma City had it wrapped up? I've been talking to our guest today, so watching the game last night with a few buddies, and when SGA hit that layup that I think put them up 7 with 90 seconds left or whatever, one of my buddies was like, yeah, okay, that should probably do it. I'm like, okay, you haven't watched at all this year. And I get it. You and I are basketball sickos, but it's, the Knicks series was interesting because there's an emotional thing, and I just know as a Knicks fan, if it can go wrong, it probably will. But at no point did I think Oklahoma City had that wrapped up, even when they're up 15 in the 4th, when they're up 7 with 90. At any point, did you think, okay, OKC's got this?
When SGA went up for that jumper on that final possession that would have put it up 3, as he goes up for that jumper, I thought he was going to hit it. And if he hits that, I thought, okay, they're probably good, even though it only pushes it to 3. And obviously you can easily tie the game on the next possession, but we know that the Thunder are then going to foul, and we're going to get into that whole nonsense of intentional fouls there, right? So if as he goes up for it, I'm thinking, all right, he's got this, they've got this once that goes in. Once that missed and they got the ball to Halliburton, and I saw they weren't calling timeout, that's when I thought, oh, no. This is going to happen again. And then they didn't throw a double at Hallie. They didn't rush him at all. They let him just walk into a pull-up jumper. And as soon as he let that thing go, you just knew. You just knew, because he's done it 4 times now in this postseason. That guy is just as clutch as it gets.
He is. And, while I do not do First Take Radio, I do want to ask your opinion just on kind of where he exists, like the whole moniker of like, is he a superstar? Is he not? I suppose that's eye of the beholder stuff, and other people can debate it back and forth. And I certainly wouldn't put him up there with Jokic or Luka or whoever. But, as he continues to silence people, and look, if we're honest, for about 30 minutes, our guy was a wallflower last night. And I'm watching the game. I'm like, where is he? Where are you? Like, put your stamp on this game. But ultimately, winning games the way he has, and he is a lead guard, so if he's not scoring, he is doing other things, and he rebounded well last night, and he only had 3 turnovers in 39 minutes as the main ball handler against one of the best defenses we've seen in a generation. And I'm not saying, like, is he top 5, 6, or 7, whatever, but, like, generally speaking, where is his cul-de-sac in pro basketball right now? Where does he live?
Yeah, he's a superstar. I mean, this dude's been doing it for 2 years now, and, okay, he's not Steph, and he's not SGA, okay, but we've seen him prove himself time and time again. He's a big shot maker. Like and he's a guy that's leading a really good team, just led them to the finals. And look, we can't do the thing this year of what we did last year with them. Last year was like, oh yeah, they got to the conference finals because of injuries. Yeah, probably. Right? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. New York got really injured in that series. And I think if New York stays relatively healthy, they end up winning that game 7. This year, you can't say that. I'm not having that with the Bucks. They were beating the Bucks in that series no matter what. I'm not having that with the Cavs. They're beating the Cavs no matter what. Like, that Cavs team is weak. And then that Knicks series was really good. I think it could have gone either way in a lot of those games, and they ended up pulling it out because he was great. And this is a guy that is an elite leader on the court. He's an elite clutch player. He's one of the best point guards in the world. And you trust him with the ball. And I'm with you. Like, there's points where you're like, man, is he going to put his stamp on this game, as that game's going on? And I'm not putting him in this category, but he's, we see that with Steph Curry at times too, right? Like, Steph will kind of bide his time. I think Tyrese kind of lets the game come to him until a certain point. And a big part of that is while Steph is creating gravity, through his movement and everything, Tyrese is he's slinging that thing around the court, and he played good defense. And as you mentioned, he rebounded really well. He's someone that is still contributing to winning basketball. And I think he is a big part of the reason why they don't give up. Even if he's not the one hitting the shots, he's leading that whole thing.
Yeah, and the stat you referenced is the stat that stands out, led the show with it. Like, Oklahoma City is elite at forcing turnovers and scoring off of turnovers. But if you're turning 24 turnovers into 11 points, like, there's a world, Zach, at halftime, Indiana should have been down 25, And we heard Rick Carlisle in the locker room, like, it's not good news we're turning over like this, but it's a miracle we're still in the game. And for about, man, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes of the 48, Oklahoma City seemed to be in this, like, we're up between 7 and 13, and we can't extend it beyond that. But every time they kind of creep closer, we're able to find an answer. But because of their inability to turn those turnovers into points, I'm watching the score, and I'm thinking, like, this is so far from over. So if you're Indiana, you could feel really good about the fact that you're up 1-0 and you turned it over that much. But do you believe that Oklahoma City will continue to have a problem converting turnovers into points because they've been so elite at it all year long?
No, but you also can't think that you're going to turn over 25 times.
Sure.
Right? Like, this is the 10th game counting the playoffs this year where they've turned it over 20 or more times. And this is one of the best teams in the league at not turning the ball over. And even Halliburton, you mentioned the 3 turnovers. That's a lot for him. He doesn't turn the ball over 3 times in a game, and all those came in the first half. So he corrected that at halftime. Like, he didn't have one in the second half, I believe. And so, like, Obi Toppin looked like he was so scared in the first half, and then he settles down, hits a bunch of threes in the second half. Like, Neesmith looked scared in the first half. Miles Turner looked scared in the first. Like, they looked like, it hit them like, oh man, we're in the finals. And then they settled down. I think that's coaching. I think that's leadership. And I think that's a team that is confident that, hey, we can keep coming back. Now, I don't think it's good to get down double digits every time. I know they're 5-3 this year or this postseason when they get down 15 points or more in a game, which is a ridiculous stat. And so you don't want to keep doing that, especially not against a team like the Thunder. But the fact that they are so comfortable down, and I got to think, like, even a team like the Thunder, They could be up double digits in the fourth quarter in game 2 at home. And if that thing gets to single digits, I don't care how good and confident that team is, that thing starts getting to single digits and they miss a shot here and there, you know that they're thinking, oh, no, here it goes again. Because we just saw that with Cleveland. We saw it with New York. We saw it with OKC last night. You have to start thinking that.
So the final possession, I thought this was interesting. And honestly, I mean, Rick Carlisle's put on a masterclass all postseason. So they get the rebound. So when Shea went up for that shot, first of all, that's the shot he wants, right? He gets the shot he wants, gets a little space, and like you, he elevates him like that's cash. Misses it. They get the board. 10 seconds left. So they get it to Halliburton, and look, Cason Wallace is a dog, and he's a good on-ball defender. Mm-hmm. But you want Dort on Halliburton in that moment. You just do. And so I wonder, because my thought in the moment was Rick saw that Cason picks up Halliburton and likes that matchup because Cason's 6'3" and Halliburton's 6'5", and it's not Dort, it's not Jalen, it is Cason. So let's let him do his thing. Is that how you read that final possession as well?
I think it was simply, we can't let this team get its defense set.
Yeah.
You know, I think it could have been anybody on Halliburton, but you're getting single coverage there. They had a timeout to burn if things got in trouble. And I think Rick Carlisle is just one of those guys. He especially trusts Halliburton to do what he needs to do and get a good shot. And look, you're right. Like Cason Wallace is, I mean, I think if he got more minutes this year, he's probably all NBA or all defense, right? He's probably all defense second team. Like he is that good defensively. The problem is, Halliburton going to his right, like that's where his sweet spot is, right? He's not one of those guys that takes that jumper going to his left. I think Caitlin Cooper does an amazing job covering the Pacers. I think she wrote it something like a 5-to-1 ratio in terms of him going to his right and taking jump shots. So some ridiculous stat like that. And so that's where he wants to go. He didn't really have to do a step back or anything. Like he just kind of dribbles into that thing. The question I have for Mark Daigneault, like, where is the double? Where is the swarm? Like you can't help from the corner there as he's going towards the right. I would send anybody else at him. You can, like anyone else on that team, you get to have the game-winning shot. I am not giving that to Halliburton. Anyone, Neesmith, Turner, Siakam, anyone else gets to have that shot. Halliburton doesn't get to get a shot off there. And I think we saw both with the change in the starting lineup for literally no reason. I mean, I thought that was a huge mistake to start off by Mark Daigneault. And then some of that coaching down the stretch, especially that final defensive possession, I think you just saw a little bit of that inexperience there.
I'm glad you brought up the lineup change. That's where I want to go next. So it was not a good Chet game, and Daigneault decided to stagger Chet and Hartenstein, excuse me. And I thought Hartenstein was actually better in his 17 minutes than Chet was in his 24. I don't know if it's Chet's inability to handle physicality. That's always been his thing. I don't know if it's too big for the moment, at least for game one. Cason starts. Isaiah comes off the bench. Do you think we'll see that in game two, or does he go back to the two bigs together?
I don't know why he went away from him in the first place. Like, sure. I mean, Hartenstein can't handle Miles Turner. No offense to Miles Turner, but like, what's the issue there? Like, I don't get it. And you got out rebounded by 17. I think that's what it was, 17. Hartenstein grabbed 9 rebounds in 17 minutes. Like, they completely abandoned what was good for them. And I get it. You're like, oh, that team's fast. We want to make sure we have some speed and some more defense on the floor. You're the best defense in the league when Hartenstein's out there too. I don't get it. Like, you shouldn't. You're the favorite. You're the most dominant team, regular season, NBA history, 68 wins. No one can touch you in any of these things. You've got, 4 different 30-point wins in this postseason. Why are you adjusting to the Indiana Pacers before the series even starts? I didn't understand that at all. I think you go out there and by putting Chet at the 4 and using your regular starting lineup, yeah, Chet's probably going to struggle a little bit guarding Siakam, but you've got help and you've got big help, and they've got a great, big to big thing going on offense too, where that's going to be really tough for Indiana to guard. I thought that was a massive mistake on so many levels on both ends of the floor, and then even in their rotations, I couldn't believe how staggered those rotations were with those two, because I think against Indiana you kind of got to be bullies there. I mean, we saw with New York when it was Cat and Mitchell Robinson. Like, yes, they lost that series, but when those two were on the floor together, it kind of worked at times. And with Chet and Hartenstein, I think you have to believe that that's going to work against Indiana.
So we've already talked about why, if you're Indiana, you, of course, feel good. A, you have the lead. B, you don't believe you're going to turn it over 24 times in a game, or certainly 19 times and a half or whatever. But Indiana shot 18 of 39 from three, 46%. OKC 11 of 30 from three. That's not who they are anyway. Of the 16 teams in the playoffs, OKC is 13th in 3-point percentage. But so we've talked about why Indiana feels good today, because of course they should. Tell me, if anything, why you think Oklahoma City should still feel good about their chances to win this series based off of what happened last night.
I mean, they took Mike Vorkanoff had a stat, something like they took 15 more shots within 4 feet of the rim. You know, so you got a lot of shots inside. You shot more free throws. You committed fewer fouls. You know, you did force a ton of turnovers, and a lot of those were live ball turnovers. I think you have to think that you're going to, even if you force 10 fewer turnovers next game, I think you have to believe you're going to create more points off those turnovers, because I think the stat I saw going into last night's game is they were scoring like 1.36 points per possession on steals during the postseason, which is a ridiculous number. I mean, it's like scoring 136 points per 100 possessions, which would be an insane level of offensive efficiency. So, like, you have to think that as you're creating live ball turnovers, you are going to convert those. Shea had a good game. Chet was miserable. Jalen Williams shot the ball really poorly. No one else really stepped up outside of Lou Dort, hitting those threes. So I think you have to believe, like, you didn't play that good of a game, and you still should have won. And you missed on essentially a last-second shot. You missed that opportunity. So they can play a lot better, and they typically do play a lot better. And we've seen how they bounce back. I mean, they lost game 1 to Denver at home, and then came back and won by like 43 points. So we know that they'll respond. You just have to – I just do not think that they can keep up with this altered lineup. I think they have to go back to what works for them.
Has your opinion, I know you said you chose Indiana to win game 1 and Oklahoma City to win the series. I don't think it's going to be 5 games, but I still kind of lean towards OKC. Has your opinion on how this thing's going to play out changed after game 1?
I'm still sticking with Thunder in 6, but I feel, less confident in it for sure. Like, I mean, Indiana, it's not so much of what Indiana showed, because I think they did what they do, right? They shot well, and they've shot well all postseason. They're almost like 50, 40, 80 as a team for the postseason during this run. So, they did what they're supposed to on offense outside of the turnovers, which they rarely do. I'm more uneasy with the changes that OKC made. And not to keep hammering that point home, but I need to see how they adjust in game 2 and if they go back to their regular style, because I really don't like when a team changes up that kind of strategy. It reminds me a little bit, this is going to be, kind of extreme, but remember when the Mavericks, back in 2007, just all of a sudden started changing everything they did against that Warriors team, that We Believe Warriors team. Mm-hmm. They got away from their identity pretty quickly in that series. And Don Nelson knew at that point, he was like, oh, we got this. And so I think that that's a little bit of a reminder here of, if the Thunder keep adjusting to what Indiana's doing rather than adjusting what they do, which I think there's a big difference, I do think the Thunder might be in trouble.
All right, we'll switch gears. Game 2, Sunday night, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. You can hear it right here on ESPN 700. Since you and I last spoke, Tom Thibodeau has lost his job, and now the New York Knicks are looking for a new coach. Let me ask you this. You're well plugged in. Why do you think this decision was made? Who do you think was behind it?
I do think it was enough of the front office. At first I thought it was Dolan, and then as I've talked to some people, I do think some of the front office was leaning this way. I kind of heard throughout the year, especially leading up to the playoffs, of, hey, if he doesn't get to the conference finals, like, he's out, right? Like, he's just out if they don't get to the conference finals. And then once the lay of the land changed with, like, oh, Cleveland got knocked out, and then, obviously they beat Boston, I think it became a thing of, like, I can't believe we lost to the Pacers. And it's underestimating that Pacers team. And I think it kind of set back that that kind of feeling of, hey, we got to get to the conference finals or better in order for him to keep his job. I don't really know what this thing is. I don't think that he had. I know that everyone's like, you got to play your bench. You got to play your bench. What bench? The one with Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet on it? Like, I know Landry Shamet had an okay series against Indiana. He's not good, right? You were relying on DeLon Wright to kind of turn back the clock a little bit, and he did, and he played well, but he doesn't have much of a bench to utilize there. And it's not to make excuses. I still think he needs to coach better, and I think he needs to, rely on the depth, of what he's given a lot more, because we're just talking about a couple of minutes here and there. But this seemed to be decided no matter what, short of a finals run. And so I think it's fine to do if you have that person that you're going to replace them with. It doesn't seem like they have that. And if the answer is Mike Malone, no offense to Mike Malone, I'm not certain he's a better coach than Tom Thibodeau. Like, okay, he's got a ring. Show me where he's going to run the throw to Jokic offense with the Knicks. Like, I don't know what kind of coach he is without Jokic. And I'm not trying to diminish what he can do. He's obviously a very smart coach, but we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, and look, ultimately, if the whole thing with Tom is that he's not a great relationship guy, I've got bad news about Michael Malone as well.
Right, yeah. He just got fired for the exact same stuff.
Right. And I just have to wonder, and look, I'm going to sound like the old guy yelling at a cloud, but, a lot of the coaches with kind of an old school approach have lost their jobs, even if they are good at their jobs. And I don't want to say like, hey, the new coddled NBA player athlete, but is that approach antiquated? Is it no longer possible in a league that is clearly run by the players?
Yeah, I mean, probably. And you want to win?
Right.
Do you want to win, or you want to just be coddled and make money? Like, right. Does Indiana seem like they're upset when Rick Carlisle's yelling at them? He's not a guy that coddles. Rick Carlisle's hard on his players. He's about accountability, and so I don't think there's a problem with it. I don't. And if that's the issue within your organization, then I don't think you have the right players.
And I don't think they have the right players. Your point about the bench is something I've been harping on. We had Howard Beck on last hour, and he said he's been told that the front office was mad that Tom didn't go deep in his bench. I'm like, to who? What are you talking about?
Who?
Like, yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think their issue was a roster. Yeah, exactly. Like, their issue is a roster construction issue. They're top heavy with a good starting five, but if they're going to do anything else, I think they've got a cat problem. Do you think they get involved in the Durant stuff, the Giannis stuff? Do you think they try to tinker, make it deeper, or change things up top as well?
I mean, they don't have anything to go get Giannis.
Right.
They barely have anything to go get Durant. Like, that would be a pretty big concession by even this Suns organization. Like, I can't imagine that's doing a whole lot for them. So, like, you've depleted your draft pick stockpile by going and getting Bridges. So I don't know what you can flip. And let's say Phoenix said, hey, you know what? We'll do Cat for KD straight up. What does that do? No offense to KD. He's great. He's better than Cat. I don't understand how that fixes their issues. This is a team that can't defend the paint. This is a team that can't defend on the perimeter. That's not going to fix it at all. KD is a great weapon, and he can do a whole lot, but that's not going to solve their Cat problem at all. That is just going to create different problems as it solves like a little bit of some offensive stuff. But even then, like, okay, KD's going to sit and watch while Jalen Brunson does the clutch stuff, which is fine. Jalen Brunson's really good at it, but I'm failing to see how that is something that solves anything. If they could go get Giannis, sure, that's an improvement that starts to fill in some of those gaps, but they can't go get him.
All right, before I set you loose, there was a piece of news out this way as Austin Ainge has been hired as the president of basketball operations for the Utah Jazz. Ryan Smith himself at the press conference said this is now Austin's show. He is the loudest voice in the front office. Austin's dad, Danny, will report to him, and Justin Zanuck will also report to him. Of course, the soundbite, Zach, that has been making the rounds is Austin saying his philosophy on tanking is that we will not do that here. You will not see it this year. All fine and good, but when you have a top 8 protected pick that goes to Oklahoma City, If you are below 8, then you've got some interesting roster decisions to make. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
So if we take Austin at his word, they're no longer tanking or manipulating minutes. I think it's paramount for them to hold on to that draft asset next year in that draft class. But if he is now the guy calling the shots and that is his ethos, what do you think this looks like for the Jazz this year?
Well, here's the thing about that is I covered some Timberwolves and some Kings teams for a while that also weren't tanking, but they were so bad it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So this roster is like, all right, play Lowry, play the veterans and stuff. That team's not winning. That team's not good. They might win 30 games. That can still keep them their top 8 protected pick, but they technically wouldn't be tanking. I mean, this is a team that needs to continue to bottom out to go find one of those guys. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. Like the approach just doesn't make sense to me when there are those potential stars. And I think this is just a product of we thought we were going to put ourselves in the position to get one of these guys. We ended up with the 5th pick or 5th pick or whatever they end up with. And now like, oh man, we can't do that again and sell it with good PR. Sometimes you got to just be uncomfortable, right? Like they just need to be uncomfortable for another year and see if it works again. And then if it doesn't, okay, then you adjust. And you start making some deals with some of the draft picks and some of the players that you have, and you lean on development. But you know, the whole press conference thing is meaningless. You can say all that stuff and you can do all this stuff, but the roster's the roster. Like it doesn't matter if you want to tank or not. If this is basically what it's going to be going into next season, you know, save any kind of, you know, massive changes to that roster. Like, yeah, okay, you're not tanking, you're not good.
Yep, well said. As long as they hold on to that asset, that's to me, that's number one priority all year long, man.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, appreciate the time, buddy. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the finals. We'll chat soon.
Yes, sir.
Zach Harper covers the NBA for The Athletic. He's doing a live stream for NBA for pre-half and post during the NBA Finals. Get the link to all of his work on his Twitter page, which is @TalkHoops. Going to bring in an old buddy, Gordon Monson, coming up on the other side of a break. But before we catch a break, another old friend. Once upon a time, I was out at his place with Gordon quite a bit. It's Ryan from the Dish Bros. You give him a call at 801-424-DISH. You save a bunch of money on a bunch of different things. What's going on, Ryan?
I remember those days with you two in the office, and I love listening to you guys, and definitely a good chemistry for sure.
Thank you, sir.
Listen, you know, this is a awesome opportunity. If you're paying, $200 a month or more for your TV and internet, guys, listen, call up and take advantage of the deals that we have. You've got a promotion second to none where you get a 2-year promotional price. The price is guaranteed not to change. We'll throw in movie channels. And also, we got a promotion. We'll give you 3 months of your service for free. Now, guys, this is a big, big promotion. And if you've got all these big bills, and this is a few $1,000 in your pocket, your bill is overall going to be cheaper. Plus, you're going to have a bigger, faster DVR, and you get free service. Plus, Dish is right on the edge of technology. They've got all of the streaming apps available within the system. So you got one remote. You can switch back from traditional TV straight to streaming. Easy and simple. And you get the best price guarantee when you call us. Plus, we'll throw in dinner at JCW's. We also have a half a dozen internet providers. And I'm not kidding when I say half a dozen. We actually have about 12, but not necessarily in this market. So, listen, if you are overpaying your internet, you don't have a good internet solution, it's glitchy, it's not working, call us up. Let's lower the bill, get you a better service, better TV service, free service for 3 months. Don't throw in dinner at JCW's. You just got to call 424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH.
Got to tell you about my friends at X-Clear. Allergy season, is it hitting you hard? Well, X-Clear's got your back. X-Clear is a nasal spray powered by xylitol, a natural ingredient that flushes out allergens and hydrates your nose. X-Clear helps rinse out pollen, dust, mold, and airborne irritants. It's not just saline. Xylitol helps keep your nose cleaner and healthier. Great for spring allergies, pet dander, or anytime your nose feels stuffy or dry. I've started using it, and honestly, it is a game changer. Available at xclear.com, Amazon, and your local grocery or drugstore. X-Clear is doctor recommended and safe for kids, too. If you're tired of pharma products that knock you out, X-Clear is a natural way to breathe easy. We'll catch a quick break. We'll bring in my old buddy, Gordon Monson from the Salt Lake Tribune on the other side of a Friday Drive right here on ESPN 700. when you hear the Godfather theme music, it means one thing. The Godfather of Utah Sports Talk Radio himself, Gordon Monson, on a Friday afternoon. Gordo, happy Friday, buddy. How we doing?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing, Spence? Hope things are going well for you.
Yeah, things are great. Things are great. I promise I won't do the entire hit about the following topic, but I've got to start out with it. Who chose your hat that you wore at your daughter's wedding on the North Shore of Oahu?
It was kind of a toss-up.
It was not you. It wasn't you. That's all I know. You did not choose that hat.
It was, well, my wife, and it was a joint effort.
There it is. There it is.
Whatever. It was sunny and hot, and I had to, cool off a little.
Gordon, I have looked at the picture of your family 75,000 times with your beautiful daughters, your beautiful wife, and then my man. Is that a fedora? Is that a fedora that you were rocking?
I don't know what you would consider it. All I know is it cost me more than it should have.
What I want to know is what the price tag of the whole wedding was, but I'm not going to ask you that on the radio. Hey, look, you rocked it, buddy. You look good. I mean, the thing about the picture is all of your daughters and your wife are so fashion conscious, and they're so dressed up and so nice. It looked to me like you walked out with your old suit on, and Lisa was like, "We've got to do something," so you're wearing this damn hat.
Well, I had a suit. I had a perfect suit for the occasion, and I pull it out, and my wife and my daughter says, "You can't wear that suit. That's what the groom is wearing." And so I had to resort to this thing that was like 5 sizes too big for me. And by the way, those pictures, every time I look at pictures at a wedding, and one that includes one of my daughters, I think, okay, it's time to drop a few lbs. but anyway, it turned out really well, so I was happy about that.
Okay, last thing. The hat just rules so hard. I'm looking at it again. It's such a good look, man. I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you. And you've done it, right? All the daughters are now betrothed or with their partners. That's a nice accomplishment for mom and dad.
Yeah. It's all taken care of from that standpoint. But this was my 4th wedding at which I was the officiant. And I'm batting 500 because 2 of them ended up divorced. But if you're batting 500, that ain't bad, I guess. That would lead the league. That's
a Hall of Fame career, Gordo. You know what? Since you brought that up, I need to ask your advice. My little cousin Madison has asked me to officiate her wedding in July. I'm not exactly sure what she was thinking, but any advice for your boy as I'm set to do what you've done multiple times next month?
This is what I would do if I were you, and it's what I've done at most of the weddings that I have been the officiant. I interview them beforehand and find out what they love about each other, and then express that to those congregated. And that usually works out pretty well. I like doing it that way. Since my daughter got married on the beach this time, I had the groom and the bride both get a container of sand and pour it into the sea glass container where they're mixing their sand into one. And then I had everybody who was there take we handed out small shells, and everybody who was there, it was a small gathering, added a little shell to the mix. So I thought that was kind of a nice idea.
I'm very impressed. There's no way that was your idea, though. I knew it. I looked up the sand thing, but my wife's idea was for everybody who was there to put a little shell in there. So it was very intimate. It was very cool. But this is what I found out, Spence. So many people go out there and they spend all this money on an elaborate affair and all this stuff. Man, keeping it small and quaint, it's kind of nice. The pictures looked wonderful, and of course I tease. I love your family. Looks like you guys had a great time, and that hat just killed me, man. I loved it. But we can move on, Gordo. We can move on because since you and I last spoke, there have been a lot of news locally that I'd like to discuss with you. Most recently, Austin Ainge has been added to the Jazz front office as their president of basketball operations. And Ryan Smith himself said during the press conference that this is now the guy. It's Austin Show. He's calling the shots, meaning Danny, his dad, reports to him. Justin Zanuck, the GM, reports to him as well. So your reaction and what you think this means for the Utah Jazz is they're going to try to continue this rebuild that's into year 4 without a lot of forward traction.
Yeah, he says the tanking is over. That doesn't mean the losing's over. I mean, I think it's going to go on for a while yet. But Austin Ames seems like a bright guy. You can look at it in one of two ways. I mean, either there's nepotism going on here, or, this is a person who can come in here and add energy. He was with the Celtics all those years. We remember him, Spence, as just being a player down at BYU. That's the thing. You see these guys grow up, and they turn into adults. And I think Austin Ames is a fairly capable guy. So we'll see what he can do.
So let's dig into what he said about the tanking stuff, and the way you articulated it, I think, is the right way to articulate it. Like, just because the tanking is apparently over doesn't mean the losing is apparently over. So what do you think it's going to look like, Gordon? Because here's what I perceive to be the number one priority for next season. It's very simple. So if the Jazz did not owe a top 8 protected pick to Oklahoma City next year, I'd feel differently about the approach. But because they do, the worst possible thing that could happen this year is the Jazz winning like 35 games, and we're all sitting here next spring, and Mark Tatum pulls out the envelope and says the number 9 pick in the draft belongs to the Utah Jazz, meaning it belongs to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have to maintain that asset, Gordo. That's my opinion. Give me your thoughts on it, and if so, what do you think this year is going to look like?
Spence, you bring up a great point there, but I think at some juncture, the Jazz have to be able to go out and let those players play as hard as they possibly can and win as many games as they possibly can. Because I don't know, it's interesting. A lot of people look at OKC and they say, "Oh, that's a blueprint for the Jazz to follow." Well, that'd be great. I mean, Austin Ames is a smart dude. I don't think he's quite at Sam Presti's level. I mean, what that guy did to build that team, trading 2 All-Stars and then freeing up some flexibility. That sound familiar, Jazz fans? Mm-hmm. I mean, it is sort of what the Jazz are looking at now, what they did. But what's the difference? OKC got an MVP. They traded for an MVP. And whether the Jazz can find that kind of leadership, I really don't know. And you have to get lucky, but you have to be – here's the thing. Austin Ames has to be smarter than just about everybody else in the league. Is he? Is he at that level, Spence? I don't know whether he is. It may sound unfair, but that's sort of what quote-unquote small market teams have to do. They have to get lucky in the draft, but they have to recognize talent and get it one way or the other. They have to figure out what they have and unload what they can unload without hurting the building process and get guys who others might not think are as good as they might be. And that's what Austin Ames has to do, regardless of where the picks are that they get. I mean, it just has to happen that way. The thing about OKC, though, is they haven't forfeited many of their draft picks. They could still get better based on after the smart decisions they've made to build that roster into what it is. And of course, SGA, I mean, those guys don't grow on trees, and where the Jazz are going to get a player like that, I don't know.
Yeah, and look, a lot of good stuff there. It's interesting to understand the narrative of the finals in front of us, where there are 2 teams that parlayed Paul George into 2-star players. If you think about it, I mean, Indiana had Paul George. They traded Paul George to OKC for Victor Oladipo and Domo Sabonis. Then they traded Domo Sabonis to Sacramento for Tyrese Halliburton. And then Oklahoma City flips Paul George to the Clippers for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a couple of other pieces like Danilo Gallinari, and 5 picks. One is turned into Jalen Williams. But the fact of the matter is, look, I know that when they traded Mitchell, when the Jazz traded Mitchell, there was this celebration of the haul they got in return. I don't think they got enough. I really don't. And I like Lowry. The Ringer just released their top 100 players in the NBA. The Jazz have one on the list. It's Lowry, who's 53. And Donovan Mitchell is 28 years old in his prime. He's the 8th best player in pro basketball, according to The Ringer. So, look, there are still draft picks that can be conveyed. They had some other pieces in that deal. Colin Sexton has been fine for the Jazz. Ochai Agbaji was good in Toronto, didn't work out here. But Sam Presti and the Indiana front office turned Paul George into cornerstones, and I don't know that the Jazz did that with Donovan, who is a top 10 player in his prime, Gordon.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Spence. I know you study this stuff, and you're right on the money, in my opinion. I mean, Sam Presti, I have so much respect for that guy. I don't know him. Have you talked with him?
I've met him a couple times. He was with the Spurs for a number of years before the Sonics hired him, then obviously OKC after they left Seattle.
People talk about luck. You need luck, and yeah, you do a little bit here and there, but Sam Presti's just been smarter than everybody else. And as far as what the Pacers have done, there's been a lot of talk about the small market finals and whatnot, but these two teams have proved to me that you don't have to be in some huge market in order to make it work. The Pacers, so we talked about what OKC has done, but what the Pacers have done, not only have they gotten some talent. You talked about Halliburton. Holy cow, Spence! He shoots it like you did back in the day.
Oh, that's nice.
It's just in those clutch moments. I mean, he's just exactly what a team needs. And so that's the second part of the two-stage rocket here is you got to get the players, and then you got to implement something that works for them in their best interest. And that's what the Pacers have done. I'm sure you've broken down what they do offensively. I love it. People talk about, I want to see New York. I want to see the Lakers in the finals and whatnot. No, I love this matchup. I love what we're seeing. The way the Pacers, I compare it, I was writing a column, I compare it to sort of a Jiffy Pop kind of offense. It's conceptual in nature, but I get the feeling that the players are free to do what they want to do. They set all those screens and they move the ball and they get up the floor, and it's just fun to watch. I don't need to have LeBron James in the finals in order to enjoy it. I mean, what these teams do, that game last night was, what basketball fan wouldn't love that?
Jiffy Pop, as in the popcorn that you put on a stovetop like 40 years ago? Is that?
Do they not have that anymore? I don't know. I mean, but what I mean is...
Jiffy Pop, are you kidding? Half of your readers have never even heard of that, Gordon.
Okay, so I probably could have found a different analogy there. But all I know is that offense explodes, kind of like popcorn kernels. I mean, it's fun to watch, and I'm not even sure the players know exactly what they're going to do with the ball every time down the floor. They know the basics of what they like to do, and they're familiar with one another. But it's just this kind of, explosive offense that really adds to the color features of the game.
I can't believe you landed on Jiffy Pop, but we can move on. The good news, Gordon, if you're a Jazz fan, is there's one top 3 pick on both of these rosters, and it's Chet. He's the only top 3 pick on both these rosters. So that's the good news. The bad news, if you're a Jazz fan, is Oklahoma City and, in a way, Indiana. But Indiana has done this a little bit differently because they were able to get Pascal Siakam when Toronto decided to yard sale. And they, and they already had Halliburton on the roster. Miles Turner has been there forever. Aaron Nesmith was a Celtic but couldn't get off the bench. So as far they drafted Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard, but they have not gone about this the same way Oklahoma City has. The bad news for the Jazz is at this point the jury is still out on all of their picks. So I can say the good news is the only top 3 pick in the finals is Chet Holmgren, but whether it's top 3, top 5, top 10, top 15, both rounds, you have to draft the right players. It sounds so reductive and simple, but you have to hit on the picks and you have to start to develop. And they did not draft Walker. He was part of the Gobert deal, but he has developed under Will Hardy. There's some things to like about Collier, but dude, I don't think Isaiah Collier and Keontae George even make Oklahoma City's roster, and I don't think Lowry starts for them. So the bad news is there just is not a lot in the cupboard, which leads us to number 5. This feels like as important as a draft for the Utah Jazz in a number of years. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%. And look, there's somebody out there. There's somebody in this draft that isn't going to be picked in the first 4 selections that can really help a team in a major, major way. And this is where Austin Ainge has to dial in on that guy. Who is it? Well, I mean, yeah, they say, well, you get lucky. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss it. No, the Jazz can't afford to miss. They've missed a couple times already, in my opinion, as you articulated. And this time they cannot miss. They have to take advantage of what they have here. And then if they do hit on their draft picks, then they got to do what the Pacers and what OKC have done in selecting a guy that they can bring in who may be less thought of than what the Jazz recognize that they can be. I mean, you mentioned the trades, the Pacers getting Halliburton and OKC getting SGA. I mean, those are just really savvy, smart moves by smart front office people. How smart are the Jazz front office guys? Danny, I don't know. His golf game's probably really good. Austin seems like he's more dialed in, and maybe he's on top of these things. But I mean, if they miss, then they flounder. And think about it. In the past, when the Jazz hit on draft picks, then it really helped them. I mean, we don't need to go through the Stockton and Malone situations, 16 and 13. I mean, look at it. When they got Donovan Mitchell and others, it was through smart moves by the Jazz. So recognizing the kind of talent that can be utilized in the system that they want to run here, go get that guy. If it's not Cooper Flagg, because you're not going to have an opportunity to get him, or get somebody who's going to be just as good as him that maybe other people don't recognize. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's something that has to be done in order for the Jazz to succeed.
Yeah, this stuff isn't easy. And, when you're able to, and, one of the reasons why not grabbing 1 overall stings this year. Gord, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry about that. One of the reasons why not grabbing 1 overall sting, well, there's several reasons because Cooper's awesome. But when you have the guy, like San Antonio has Wembanyama, then Chris Paul will sign with you. And I know Chris Paul is, not who he used to be, but De'Aaron Fox will greenlight a trade to San Antonio because you have Wembanyama. If the Jazz can find their answer to that, and it's not Cooper Flagg, maybe it's A.J. DeBonsa, then you've got something. Then agents will take your phone call to say, okay, yes, I want my client to come play for you because you have this great young piece and all players want to win and get paid. Right now, the Jazz just don't have that. Like no agent is calling Austin Age and saying, hey, my client would really love to play off of Johnny Juzang. Like they just don't have the piece as of now to attract other players, which is why this has to be a long game. One more Jazz thing, then I do have some other things for you, then I'll set you loose. Tom Thibodeau just lost his job after going to the Eastern Conference Finals and winning 50 games back-to-back seasons and making the playoffs 4 or 5 years. Michael Malone just lost his job after winning a championship 2 years ago. Taylor Jenkins, a lot of good coaches have lost their jobs. Will Hardy received a 5-year contract extension. He's won 33% of his games. The Jazz have locked in their front office with Austin, Danny, and Jay-Z and other pieces moving forward. So the problem is it doesn't matter who your coach is. It doesn't matter who your front office is if you have bad basketball players. But is there a silver lining that Ryan and Ashley Smith appear to be hiring people they believe in and giving them space to do their jobs and giving them the long game to do this from a front office and coaching perspective?
Yeah, and Spencer, you and I have had this conversation so many times that the single most important element in any franchise is the owner and what the owner is willing to do. And if Austin Ainge can bring to this team what is necessary, which we've thoroughly discussed here, then they're willing to pay him to be here and pay him to keep him here. And that's what has to happen. I mean, it sounds unfair in some ways. Like, okay, Spence, when we say, okay, you just got to be smarter than the other guys, that's just the way it is. That's what they got to do. And if Ryan Smith is willing to continue to pour resources into this, then yeah, they can get it done. But like you said, that number 5 pick is huge for this team this year for the very reason that you talked about. And remember, it used to be that people said these small market teams, players don't want to go play there. Well, talk to the players on the Thunder. Talk to the players on the Pacers, 2 supposedly small market teams, and talk about how much they like playing, where they're playing. I mean, but you said it exactly right. They have assets involved in their franchises that draw other players in. And as you so articulately said there, right now the Jazz don't have that.
All right, switching gears here before I set you loose. And this is a complicated story to talk about, but you've always excelled in things like this. And I hate to make it a football story, but Jake Retzlaff is the starting quarterback at Brigham Young University. And since you and I last spoke, a civil suit has been filed. No criminal charges, as I continue to remind everybody. And these are allegations, and Jake deserves due process like everybody else. And so we'll kind of see how it plays out. It adds an extra layer of complication as far as where he plays and the honor code, which he is forced to adhere to. I don't want to say, but like he has to adhere to if he wants to be a student and an athlete at BYU. They all have to. That's just the deal. If you're playing down there, if you're going to school down there. So your thoughts on where we find ourselves and just some thoughts on how Brian Santiago and BYU kind of have to traverse this newly complicated space.
Well, it's if you're going to break the law and you're going to hurt people, then you're in big trouble. It's just the way it is. I mean, anybody theoretically has to follow the law. But at BYU, you can't bail out by saying things are consensual or other things that might be utilized in other cases because the honor code is there. It's an extra layer, the behavioral code that is going to demand a certain kind of behavior. And so I don't know. This is what I think is going to happen. This case, this thing plays out in the courts, it's going to take over a year to get it settled. And so where does that leave BYU? BYU is in a situation where I don't think they can afford to have their starting quarterback be playing under this kind of dark cloud. So what they have to do, in my opinion, and I'm not an attorney, but BYU has access to a whole lot of those. They need to go out and find out what really happened and then move on it in that direction. If they can get it solved beforehand that it isn't a thing, then they can move on. But if there's that cloud, if there's that doubt, then yeah, you want people to have due process and you want to presume them innocent until proven guilty. But BYU is a different beast. I mean, they cannot abide that. And I think there's a whole lot of colleges out there, universities, football programs who couldn't abide it, least among them BYU. So I don't want to condemn anyone before it is made as certain as possible. But doing things the way BYU does, I don't think they can afford that luxury to wait that long.
Gordo, it's been too long. I appreciate the time. Was that hat more than $200? Tell me the truth.
No, it was not. It was not. I think I mooched it off someone on the street somewhere. I just hey, can I borrow that hat?
There's a Rodney Dangerfield bowl of soup joke in here somewhere, Gordo. But hey, you wore it well. Looked like you guys had a great time. Always enjoy visiting with you. Let's do it again soon, okay?
I think the line is, oh, no, but it looks good on you.
Thank you, sir. Be good, okay?
See you. Bye.
Gordon Monson, Salt Lake Tribune. Always appreciate his time. Some good stuff there from Gordo. We will catch a break. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program. We got an hour left to do before we turn you over to the Stanley Cup Final. Game 2, you can hear it right here on our radio station on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. All right, let's get a Drive at 5 time Friday afternoon. 8 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. 5 o'clock. We'd have a lot of radio to do if it was 8 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. But 8 minutes past the hour, 5 o'clock. It is one of those picture-perfect Utah days outside on this June Friday afternoon. It's about 70 degrees and clear and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. We're going to have some warm weather over the course of the weekend. Hopefully you have something fun planned. And as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That's Porter Larson behind the glass. Christopher Mad Dog Russo, that's right. The Mad Dog himself will join the radio program in just about 15, 20 minutes from right now. Talk NBA Finals. Mad Dog has some very intense feelings, well, about a lot of things. If you watch him on First Take with Stephen A. every Wednesday. Mike and the Mad Dog, one of the original, in fact, the original sports talk radio program back in the greater New York area in the late 80s and 90s, of course, is how he kind of burst onto the scene. But he has very strong feelings about the NBA draft lottery process that, of course, saw the Jazz, well, I'll say fall to 5, even though that was their most likely outcome. So we'll bring in Mad Dog coming up in just a little bit. We do have some NHL Stanley Cup playoffs as the final will resume tonight. Right at 6 o'clock, top of the hour, it's the Panthers and the Oilers. Edmonton won game 1 in overtime with a Draisaitl goal to take 1-0 lead in the series. Obviously, this is a rematch from the Stanley Cup final from a year ago that went 7 games. Saw Florida win the first 3 games, Edmonton win the next 3. Then Florida was able to hang on for a Game 7 victory, so stay tuned for that. We're also your home of the NBA Finals, which has driven a lot of the content on the program today. Some good stuff from Howard Beck and Zach Harper on the NBA Finals. It saw the upstart Indiana Pacers take a 1-0 lead over the Oklahoma City Thunder last night in OKC. 111-110, another game winner for Tyrese Halliburton. The Indiana Pacers have come back from 15-point deficits 5 different times during this postseason, which last happened in 1998. Tyrese Halliburton has hit 5 either game-tying or shots that gave his team the lead with under 5 seconds left, which already ranks him second since 1997. LeBron is first with 8. Then it's Halliburton and Reggie Miller with 5. So he has really burst on the scene in a way that if you're not familiar, you probably know his name now. Oklahoma City is an 8.5-point favorite. 10.5-point favorite to win Game 2, as they'll be back down in OKC on Sunday night. That'll come your way at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. Television coverage is on ABC. Of course, you can hear the game on our radio station on ESPN 700. Not a lot of local news today on the pipeline. BYU basketball announced yesterday that they had locked up Kevin Young to a long-term contract extension. Not too surprising there is Brian Santiago, the new athletic director, during his introductory press conference, said that the first priority is to lock up Kevin Young long-term, which they have done. Alex Jensen picked up a commit today. It's a point guard from Finland named Emery Abbey. He's committed to Utah basketball. That is Alex's 9th addition to the new Runnin' Utes roster. Their roster now stands at 12 total players. They have 3 roster spots available to fill prior to the fall. The New York Knicks, according to sources, have reached out to the Dallas Mavericks, interested in speaking with Jason Kidd for their vacant head coaching position now that they have fired Tom Thibodeau. So there's some news there. A lot of people surmising this is going to be a very dramatic offseason in the NBA with a lot of big names moving. And, of course, a lot of the drama has already taken place, but we still have the NBA Finals in front of us. We are just a few weeks away from the NBA draft. As of now, the Jazz have the number 5 pick and the number 21 overall pick. Coming up on June the 25th, round 1, we're going to have great coverage for you of both round 1 and round 2. Now, both those rounds will take place following our radio show. So the NBA has a new format as it pertains to the way they run the NBA draft. It's a 2-day event. Didn't used to be. So round 1, June the 25th, will start at 6 o'clock Mountain Time, and we're going to stay on air live throughout the course of the entire first round. And we'll do the same thing the very next day on June the 26th for the second round coverage of the NBA draft. So stay tuned for that. The Jazz with 2 first-rounders and 2 second-round picks as of now to potentially add some young pieces to this roster as we see what Austin Ainge will do with his first big decision. You know, you can debate how big certain draft picks have been over the years when the Jazz find themselves in the position they find themselves in now, which is badly in need of a talent upgrade. This is as big of a decision that the Jazz have made in a long, long time. A lot of pressure on Austin Ainge to make sure he's drafting the right player at number 5. Every time an NBA media member or somebody who covers the league discusses potential offseason moves and what could happen on draft night, the Jazz are certainly involved, as you would expect them to be. So potentially they could utilize that as a chip to either move up, maybe move down, add pieces to the roster. So we'll see if they stay at 5, if they stay at 21, and what that looks like. More than anything else, regardless of where you draft, you better get it right this time around. And in fairness, I don't think anybody at this juncture of these young players' careers should be in a position to either dismiss or anoint as far as who Isaiah Collier is, who Keontae George is, even who Bryce Sensabaugh is, or some of these other players, Kyle Filipowski. Hopefully Taylor Hendricks is healthy and ready to go. All the reports from the Jazz are that he is making serious progress. And then there's the question of, can Cody Williams figure something out this offseason to make year 2 just look even a little bit better than year 1 did, because it was not good. So that will be the next date of interest for Jazz fans, June the 25th, when the NBA draft takes place, and then June the 26th, which will be round 2. Then right after the NBA draft is where we find the NHL draft. And in year 1 of their existence, the Utah Mammoth received Lady Luck in a way the Jazz have never received in their 50 years of existence. Kind of interesting to think about that. RSL is on a break this weekend, which is probably good. They will be back in action on the 14th against DC. Only 2 matches for Real Salt Lake before they launch into the month of July. And the month of July for RSL is as big of a month as they've seen for a long time. The schedule will be somewhat packed. And probably more importantly, they will have the ability to add talent to their roster as the summer transfer window will open in mid-July. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Coming up on the other side, one of the titans of this industry and one of my main mentors, and I like to call him a friend, proud enough to call him a friend, Chris Russo, the Mad Dog himself, stops by, coming up on the other side of a Friday edition of The Drive right here on ESPN 700.
String band play.
No, this is our guy Coulter, right?
Little Zach Brown Band, he says.
You like Zach Brown Band, though.
I do actually like Zach Brown
That's what
Band.
I
It's one of those that kind of bridges the gap. Although he does sing about, like, I don't know if you've ever heard the song Toes. It's just like about the beach and beers and whatnot. I think he does so with I don't know, a little less corniness than other.
What's the one about chicken fried rice?
It's just chicken.
It's just
A little
chicken.
bit of chicken fried, cold beer on a Friday night.
Yeah, it's the same.
Pair of jeans that fit just right.
Yeah, exactly.
And the radio on.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Wait, what's the Landlaw lyric? George Jones on the radio? My favorite part of any Landlaw video I've seen is when they show him. He talks about he's got a crossbow. He's getting ready to shoot a deer, and our guy does the thing where he's about to shoot a deer, and you can tell that he's never shot a crossbow in his entire life.
He never pulled back on a bow. Yeah, that's a good one. I forgot to play our Landlaw though. Our boys.
We'll get over it. It's such a horrible, horrible piece of music. But just keep going, guys. Keep doing your thing.
Hey, keep getting the clicks.
Why don't we start a band if they can do it? I've got a better voice than he does right now.
I would say I could make some bad music. If I tried really hard, I think I could make like a very mediocre song. But I don't know if I could do some. Well, no, I could do something corny enough to get some hate views on the internet.
I'm sure you could. I mean, if they can, anybody can do it. Certainly. So shout out Landlaw on this beautiful Friday afternoon. All right. Before we say goodnight, I don't usually do this, but it's a big day for your boy here. So my son's in town. Shout out Connor. And the only I didn't used to talk about this. If you're aware of my story at all, you may or may not be. But today is my 22-year anniversary of a surgery I had to remove a cancerous brain tumor when I was just 25 years old. And I was not supposed to survive that surgery. It was a 12-hour surgery. And before I went in, they had me say goodbye to all my family and my friends, and I didn't fully realize the severity of the situation I was dealing with, but I was lucky to have great care by Bill Caldwell and the Huntsman Cancer Institute, and I came out with more or less a normal quality of life. Certainly that surgery left some residual effects with balance and some physical stuff that I still battle to this day, but my son is in town, and he is about to turn 24 years old next month. And my only desire and wish was to watch him grow. He was 2 years old at the time, and I've been able to do that. I didn't used to talk about this because it's a private thing, but I feel like every time I do, it's important to point out that the reason I was able to survive that is we were able to get the tumor before it became embedded into my brain. And when that happens, you can't operate. And as doctors say, it's a six-pack and a fishing pole, and it's best of luck. So early detection is key. We are so blessed to live in a city with truly one of the best cancer care facilities in the world. When we were trying to figure out what we were going to do once my situation manifested itself, we called our family care doc in Midtown Manhattan and said, okay, what do we need to do? Where do we need to be? And he said, well, one of two facilities. One is Sloan Kettering back east, and the other one is right where you're at in Salt Lake. So if you're at Huntsman Cancer, you're in great care. You don't need to go anywhere. And they saved my life. And Bill Caldwell, my surgeon, saved my life. So just once a year, I'd like to do this on my anniversary, which kind of lands differently as you get older and you realize how blessed you've been to survive such things that, go in and get checked. If you have any questions about anything that's going on, doesn't have to be a brain tumor. It could be anything because early detection can save your life. So I won't belabor the point, but I like to talk about this once a year as it's a big day for me, and it's nice to have my son in town and celebrate that. All right, Porter, before we say goodnight, here's the question before we say goodnight. On Monday, we'll be talking about a series that's 1-1 or 2-0 Indiana.
We're going to see a 1-1 bounce back. We're going to see a bounce back from OKC. I'm confident that they, respond to what happened in game one, which was, I don't want to say a fluke because we've seen it, 6-7 times in the postseason already this year. But I have very little doubt that OKC responds. But when you lose game one and you do it on your home floor and you do it like that, well, you have a series on your hands.
No doubt, no doubt. So as I said yesterday, I will take Oklahoma City in 5, but I certainly am cheering for a long series with great basketball, and we definitely had that last night. All right, Porter, what comes our way on a Monday edition of The Drive?
On a Monday version of the drive, Spence will of course recap the NBA weekend, NBA Finals Game 2. Tom Haberstroh stops by for the NBA Daily Assist. We'll go into Indiana. Brad Knight of the Pacers Post Up podcast joins us on a Monday. We'll chat with Richard Smitty Smith in studio and catch up with Ted Robinson. Talk a little Roland Garros, maybe. Off-season college football mostly as well on a Monday.
Love that. Love that. Catch up with Uncle Ted. It's always a good time. Special thank you today to Chris Russo, Howard Beck, Zach Harper, and Gordon Monson for any of the sound you may have missed from the show today. Head on over to the website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. That's how I listen to our station. ESPN 700 app is available for free in the App Store and the Google Play Store as well. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out our podcast page. It is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. So go to your preferred podcast catcher, subscribe, rate, review. Say nice things in the comments and give us all the stars. You will be eternally blessed. For Porter, I'm Spence saying good night. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be good to yourself and be good to each other. We'll talk to you on a Monday edition of The Drive. And as always, you can catch that right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's